It's a lava. Mr. Lava Lava. I'm Mr. Lava Lava. Mr. Lava Lava.
Limitless,
She call me
yes.
Mr. Bombastic, very fantastic. Opening on the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. On the fantastic, she tickle up the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. She call me Mr. Bombastic, very fantastic. Opening on the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. On the fantastic, she tickle up the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. She call me Mr. Bombastic. Mr. Lava Lover, Mr. Lava Lover, listen to undercover. She called me Mr. Bombastic, very fantastic. Opening on the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. On the fantastic, she tickle up the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. She called me Mr. Bombastic, very fantastic. Opening on the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. On the fantastic, she tickle up the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. She called me Mr. Bombastic, very fantastic. Opening on the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. On the fantastic, she tickle up the box, she says I'm Mr. Roll. She called me Mr. Bombastic.
Limitless, yes.
morning. Just doing some ball and arm exercises. Well, arm exercises on the ball.
After you clean your toilet, you want it to stay clean. Soft Scrub Duo Cubes deliver a powerful continuous clean, flush after flush. Now with anti-clogging technology. Clean smarter, not harder, with Soft Scrub Duo Cubes.
And what kind of milk?
Oat milk. Depression's more than just sadness. My doctor told me there are multiple symptoms. I don't enjoy the things I used to love. I feel guilty when I...
Wow. It's so telling. Why not get creative and fun with what you can't control? Right, like the president.
Well, I mean, it's just like common sense, man. So, I guess I don't know. How is the house planning on fixing it? Anything?
Well, right now there's a line in the sand,
Yeah.
and there's nothing gonna happen until the Senate moves on the Save America Act. I'm not saying I endorse that strategy, Benny,
Sure.
but that's where we are.
That's where we are.
At the moment in time.
It's the way that it goes. Okay, so you've seen some, you've had some major frustrations with the DOJ and with criminal referrals, and you said that finally that logjam is getting loosed a little bit, and you're really happy about that. What about Dr. Fauci? A lot of news about Fauci. Boy, what a heater that was thrown his direction from Tulsi Gabbard. He's been a thorn in your paw. He's now been subpoenaed by Rand Paul. What's going to happen there?
Well, I think Rand's going to get him in and ask him questions about the information that Tulsi released, because he lied to the House Oversight Committee. We had a select committee, a COVID select committee that was led by Dr. Brad Winstrup from Ohio. He's a retired member now. But we did a criminal referral because he lied to Congress. He lied about destroying emails. He lied about telling employees not to put things in email so he could withhold transparency from the American public at a time when we should have had optimal transparency. So, Rand has always been focused on whether or not we were funding gain-of-function research. He would say in committee hearings, well, it wasn't gain-of-function research, it was something else. And I think with what Tulsi released, there's more than enough evidence to prove that Dr. Fauci lied about that. So hopefully there'll be another criminal referral in addition to ours in the House from the Senate with respect to Dr. Fauci. And surely to goodness, this new and improved Department of Justice will do the right thing. No one has ever been held accountable for COVID. I mean, you just look at public education. Whether you like public education or not, we suffered because of the requirements by Dr. Fauci and recommendations by Dr. Fauci that kids shouldn't go to school, even though there was never evidence young people were dying of COVID or suffering any health consequences from COVID. So our kids went, and they're behind today. Doesn't matter if they're a senior or if they're in seventh grade. They missed a whole year of public education. And then, you saw what it did to our national debt with the ridiculous...
I was born with a congenital dental birth defect. Insurance wouldn't cover the treatment, and there was no way my family could afford it. So I wrote a letter to Senator Collins, and she wrote me back. Susan Collins personally reached out to the University of New England Dental School, and they gave me a brand new smile. Today, I'm in college, pre-med, to become an orthodontist. Susan Collins changed my life and inspired me to help change the lives of others.
I'm Susan Collins, and I've approved this message.
And there with Hunter Biden, what is the route to actually prosecute? Are we just going to test the legal theories in court over this pardon?
Well, look, we brought in all the people in the Biden administration that had anything to do with the pardon process.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people get caught up over the auto pen. Don't even worry about the auto pen. Don't even worry, Benny, that they used the auto pen to sign it, because I don't know that that's a winning case in court. What's a winning case in court is the fact that we brought all these people in, the chiefs of staff for Jill Biden, the chiefs of staff for Joe Biden, all the administrative assistants. No one ever could testify under oath that Joe Biden had a conversation with them about pardoning anybody. We subpoenaed all the emails. We subpoenaed the daily calendar of Joe Biden. There was never a meeting about pardon. There was never any discussion. And the president has the authority to pardon. And there's no limits on that authority, which I think there should be. I think a lot of presidents have abused the pardon process. I'm not happy with a few of the Trump pardons. But at the end of the day, the president has the constitutional authority to do that. Now, whether or not you can use the auto pen, I don't even want to get in that discussion. But we've done all the hours and hours of depositions to prove Joe Biden, as President of the United States, did not authorize those pardons. And that should be enough evidence in court to sustain an executive order by President Trump to declare all those pardons null and void.
And that would be how you begin prosecutions against a number.
If he did it by executive order, somebody's going to file a suit. Somebody's going to file a suit saying, no, that's not constitutional because the president has authority to do it, and Joe Biden did it. But there's no evidence he did it. His staff did it. The Constitution does not say the chief of staff or the first lady can pardon people. It does not say the first lady can pardon people. It doesn't say Hunter Biden can pardon people or Ron Klain or anyone else on Joe Biden's staff. They don't have the authority to pardon people. only the president, and there's no evidence that Joe Biden ever authorized a single pardon. Forget about the audit. The evidence is he was never the one to say, yes, I've reviewed the documentation, I've looked at the evidence, and this person deserves a pardon.
I never regret asking you this question, so here we go. What happens next? I know that you sort of have the nexus, the lightning in a bottle in the Oversight Committee, and you've been trying to deliver. Now you have a Department of Justice that's finally working with you.
Yep.
Where should we be focusing now when it comes to cleaning up the federal government? What's next?
We should be focusing on where we should always be focusing on the Oversight Committee: waste, fraud, and abuse. And there's so much fraud in just the Medicare and Medicaid programs. And a lot of people that don't know much about Medicare and Medicaid, you know, young people like you, Benny, you're not on Medicaid, obviously, and you're not old enough to get on Medicare. You probably don't think a lot about it. But I will tell you, it is being raped by fraudsters. And it's not just Somali fraudsters, it's not just the Sudanese fraudsters. It's being raped by a lot of medical providers. Some of them are credible medical providers that are overbilling. Some of them are fly-by-nights, like what you've seen in Minneapolis, that are 100% American. They're whiter than I am, so it's not a racial thing. We have a system where the federal government, especially with Medicaid, the federal government provides all this federal money for Medicaid, but they send it to the states to administer. And I believe in a lot of the states, especially the Democrat states, they have the attitude, well, this is federal money, it's not our money. If some of it's lost to fraud, then these Democrat governors, they don't care. Well, the taxpayers care. And it does no good to identify fraud and then nobody go to jail. Of course. We've seen about 200 people go to jail over Medicare and Medicaid fraud, thanks to Vice President Vance and thanks to Todd Blanchard's leadership of the Department of Justice. And I think we're going to see a whole lot more. And if people start going to jail, then I think the fraud will I don't want to say it'll stop, but it'll slow down significantly.
They just went and retrieved some scumbag from Turkey who had billions of dollars of fraud and brought him back in shackles. So that's a great
And that's great. That's great. We'll never get that money back because once it goes to a foreign country, you can forget about it. But the guy's in custody, and I'm happy about that.
Just like USAID, Congressman. Yeah. Just like you, Mr. Chairman. Just like USAID. Yep. What a mess. People should go to prison for that one too. Okay. Funny how libs are broke and communists are losing all across the world now that USAID is shut down. It's incredible pattern recognition.
It is.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everybody follow Chairman Jamie Comer. And we hope for better things for the great state of Kentucky. We're really excited to see what happens when there's no Tillis or Cassidy or Cornyn or McConnell in the Senate. And we think it's going to be like a very, very different vibe. So we're hoping for the best there. Godspeed, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Benny. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have some massive breaking news out of the Supreme Court. I cannot wait to speak with Senator Mike Lee about this. Two huge rulings that just came down very quickly here. Like massive rulings about the future of your country. Very quickly here, our partners at American Financing can make sure that you are financially set for the future. Maybe these Supreme Court rulings will help, and they will actually help America moving forward into a better and more golden age. But you can't do that in debt slavery. Get out of high-interest credit card debt with American Financing today. Call American Financing at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219, AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. A real strategy to get free from debt slavery. Do it today. Get a load of this. Here's the massive breaking. Come on, Klein. We got to do the breaking news stinger. Let's go! Are we blowing up Iran's nuclear facility in that? Was that what that was? Okay, great. I love that. I love it. Here we go. Massive 6-3 decision. The United States Supreme Court has sided with Trump. Some migrants that show up at the border have not arrived in the United States and do not automatically qualify for asylum and can be turned away. Boom! 6-3 decision. Imagine 3 voting for this. We got another one. I don't know, Klein, you got this one? Here we go. Supreme Court allows Trump administration to end protected status for Syrian and Haitian migrants. Supreme Court on Thursday cleared the way for the Trump administration to terminate TPS, temporary protected status, for hundreds of thousands of migrants. You ever heard of this? You ever heard of this? Senator Lee is joining the show. He's going to join the show right now. He's so good at language. He says things that are words that mean things in English. Temporary protected status means temporary. It means it's not forever. And so the Supreme Court, again in a 6-3 decision. How are these 6-3, man? Just in case you wonder if your vote matters or not. The only reason these are not 5-4 losses is because of your vote and because of our movement. Joining us now, a man who continues to fight for your vote, the great Senator Mike Lee of Utah. Let's go. We're excited. Good news out of the Supreme Court. Bad news out of the Senate. No Save America Act. But at least things seem to be headed in the right direction, Senator.
Yes, look, I'm really happy about the Supreme Court's rulings. This is what happens when you put people on the court who are there to interpret the law based on what the law says, rather than on the basis of what social scientists want or what leftist professors are advocating for. They're interpreting the law, and they interpreted the law correctly in both of these cases. They got it right, and I think that'll help.
So, what you're telling me is that's what judges should do. They shouldn't be going off of just vibes and their NPR podcast that they listen to, like Judge Sprinkle Sparkle, I think is actually her given name. Judge Sprinkle Sparkle. Judge Sparkle.
I mean, there are a lot of people with common names among jurists. I'm not aware of any other Judge Sparkle, any other judge's name Sparkle. So it's unique. At least you won't be confused. Having a common name like Mike, it was not uncommon to have 3, 4, 5 other guys in each class in elementary school with the same name. But I bet she didn't have that problem. So that's good.
So
the word temporary does mean temporary. And the concept of asylum, in the other case you mentioned, is itself permissive. Asylum has never been a mandatory issue. It is a permissive issue. In other words, the U.S. government may allow such persons in as they deem eligible for asylum. It doesn't mean they have to take anyone and everyone who comes in under any circumstances.
So you keep. I think it's just like the mandate from heaven that you have, because you've been telling us for what feels like years now about the Save America Act. And with every passing week, Senator, a new man-made horror beyond comprehension happens that proves that the Save America Act must be passed, whether it's the LA mayor's race, whether it's the communists that won in New York, whether it's Judge Sparkle saying that the federal government doesn't have the right to check social security numbers. All of this, of course, all this madness would be done away with if we had the Save America Act.
Exactly.
And so the case continues to build, and the losses continue to rack up on behalf of those who wish to vote against it, or say for some reason that third world Marxists should be invading our country and rigging our elections.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Recent conversations with my wife Sharon, who Sharon pointed out to me. Somebody had told you years ago you were pushing this in light of legal developments and other things that have happened in recent years that it would become necessary to push a bill saying we're going to require people establish their citizenship at the time of voter registration. And we're going to make sure that they produce an ID to show who they are when voting in a federal election. Nobody would have predicted that would become controversial, that this would become something, especially while 3 out of 4 Americans, Democrat and Republican voters alike, the ratio is higher among Republican voters only, but it's about 3 out of every 4 American voters regardless of political party, support this. And that the Senate would seem to be dragging its feet, looking for excuses not to deal with it. Meanwhile, President Trump is doing his best to try to make our elections as secure as it possibly can by, among other things, using existing resources like the SAVE database operated under existing law within the Department of Homeland Security. This allows for states that are willing to and interested in cross-checking their voter registration rolls against this federal database that identifies citizens as either citizens or non-citizens. It allows states a mechanism by which they can clean out their voter registration files, potentially purging those who shouldn't be on there. Judge Sparkle did something interesting. Look at the remedy that she achieved. Even if you accept her conclusion, her calling at the mouth, her Ada Warhol sort of sky is falling apocalyptic predictions about the use of social security numbers, not for public release, but for private review for this limited purpose. If that's what she was really concerned about, Benny, what you would think is that she would say, okay, there need to be adequate procedures to make sure you're not accidentally removing non-citizens, actual citizens from the voter registration file, or adequate procedures to make sure that no one's privacy is invaded through the leaking of social security numbers. But no, that's not what she did. She said you got to shut down the whole thing. Why?
What else are you going to do?
Why does the left so badly not only not want there to be a requirement in federal law that you prove your citizenship and prove who you are the day you vote, but they're not even willing to run the risk of a state going and cross-checking its voter registration rolls against this federal database. That's spooky. And as you point out, it's another piece of evidence for why we need the Safe America Act.
Why is Judge Sparkle allowed? I guess maybe would be the question. You're a big constitutional scholar. I think you could say you probably know the constitutions and the foundations of this country better than any senator that's walking the halls today, and or rolling through the halls as they tend to do. We demand that our chief executive be a natural-born American citizen.
Yes.
Yet somebody who just got here can overrule the will of the 80 million people that voted for this natural-born citizen and can lord over all of those Americans and steal their mandate and their will, and that doesn't seem like a sustainable system.
No, it's not sustainable, and I've proposed changes in the law to help prevent this sort of thing from happening. Because, Benny, a lot of times, rulings like this one from Judge Sparkle end up being overturned on appeal. That takes time. When they get an initial motion, sometimes it's an emergency motion. As a protective matter, they'll issue an injunction, and then there will be months of additional litigation to figure out whether a longer-term injunction will kick in, and then that takes a while before you can appeal it. So it's sort of defeat by denial. Defeat and denial by delay. The longer they can delay the ultimate correction of any error, the more that the sitting president of the United States is unable to do his job. It's one of the reasons why I've introduced legislation that would say that anytime you've got a federal judge acting like this, being asked to issue an injunction with nationwide effect as to a core policy decision made by the President of the United States, that sort of action ought to go before a three-judge district court panel with an automatic direct right of appeal to the Supreme Court of the United States so that we can have clarity and so that you don't have this defeat and denial by delay phenomenon that has become far too common.
Yeah, that would be a perfect remedy, but that's been what they've been using in order to stop this and in order to stop primarily the demographic change that's happening in this country at quick pace. This is what the vast majority of the injunctions are in order to ensure that the elections are as unsecure as possible and that they can keep as many criminal aliens here as possible that they brought into our nation in mass. Again, Save America Act fixes this, and you were there with President Trump yesterday. Well done during that short press conference. I saw Trump bringing out shoulder to shoulder you and Senator Scott, I think it was, right?
Scott and I were there as eye candy, really. I mean,
that's right. I thought it was great. I was like, well done, Trump. Like, way to go. These are your dogs. You know, these are your boys. These are your ride or dies right here.
It's just a little something for the ladies, I guess.
That's right. And then a very reluctant and uncomfortable looking Senator Thune. And so maybe you could tell us what happened in those meetings. There's a bunch of people saying a bunch of different things about what went down yesterday. What happened?
Look, the most critical, the most important element of that was when President Trump encapsulated it like this. He said, look, we need the Save America Act. We've got people who are trying to undermine the integrity of our elections. We've got serious flaws in our election security system. And those need to be repaired. The Save America Act would do that. This is the issue of our time. It needs to be remedied by us. And yes, I understand that under your existing practices, your existing treatment of what I refer to as the zombie filibuster, which is the filibuster without the filibuster. The filibuster without a speech is not a filibuster, but it's what we've adopted. So he said in order to get the Save America Act passed, and other things that we need to pass, but as to which we don't currently have 60 votes, you can do it one of two ways. He said you could do it through the talking filibuster. If you make them speak, make them hold the floor, that's one way you can win it. He said, I'd actually prefer that you just nuke the filibuster. I think you would find that your ability to do more things would be greater with that. And I know that there are concerns there, but he said, you know the Democrats are going to do that. The next time the circumstances align where it's in their interest to do it, where they hold the House, the Senate, and the White House, they're going to nuke the filibuster. They're going to add at least 2 reliably blue states, and they're going to make other changes to the law, including packing the Supreme Court, that will make it so that they remain in control for perhaps decades. So we said, I think you'd be a lot happier if you just nuked the filibuster. But I don't care as much which way you get there. You just need to get this passed. You know, that was an important message. I'm glad that he left us with that.
And what was the response? I mean, again, we have here the president obviously pulling. It's a great clip. He's pulling you and Senator Scott along with him. You can see it. He's like, "Get out of here! Get out of here, guys!" And there you go. There he is. It's such a great message. It's such a great message to the base. The message to the base is like these two champions on the Save America Act. Like, I see them. I promote them. I'm like standing with them. It was a genius move by the president, and it was not missed by us when we covered this. What was the reflection from your Senate colleagues on President Trump saying this has to be passed?
You know, there wasn't much of a reaction, not much of a reflection within the conference at the time he said that. And we had that part of the discussion toward the end of the meeting, shortly before we walked out. But after the meeting, you continue to have the same basic reaction, which is an assumption on the part of some, then shared with the public, that we can't do this, that it won't work, and that it's just utterly impossible. And yet I have yet to hear an explanation. Not only do I have yet to hear a legitimate argument against the Save America Act itself, I also have yet to hear, Benny, a persuasive argument as to why the talking filibuster couldn't work and shouldn't be deployed here. The arguments that they raise against it are red herrings. They're arguments that ignore history, that ignore logic, that ignore human nature, that ignore the fact that this is how the Senate has functioned for most of its existence. Not only prior to 1917, when the cloture rule was first adopted, but really for most of the Senate's existence until maybe, I don't know, the last 20, 25, 30 years. That's what the filibuster was. It was a species of talking filibuster. That's all we have to do is go back to that. Our rules were built for that. Our system was designed to handle it. And in fact, it doesn't work well with them.
So when there is a Senate, which there will be a Senate without a Cassidy, Cornyn, McConnell, Tillis in a few months, and hopefully Republicans will still be in control. The prediction markets say that Republicans will keep control of the Senate. We'll see. I hope so. Does that change anything here? Senator?
It could, and look, let's all hope and pray, Benny, that it does turn out that we hold both majorities following the midterm elections this fall. If we do still hold both of them, then I am guardedly optimistic about what that signals for our ability to do things like the talking filibuster, to pass measures like the Save America Act. I think that will be encouraging if that happens. That is a big if, and this is another thing the president covered with us yesterday, and I think he's absolutely right to raise it. He said, we've got to win these midterms in November. To win them, we need our voters to show up, to feel the need to show up, the desire to show up. Like their vote matters, like it makes a difference, and like it makes a difference moving forward to have Republican majorities. We need that. And in order for them to feel that, we need to pass the Save America Act, both for the perception and how that will affect our voters, but also to protect the integrity, the sanctity of our elections themselves. We need both. So why not do it now? We could do it now. It's not even that hard. There doesn't have to be a vote that says we're going to invoke the talking filibuster. It's just a matter of the majority leader deciding.
Harm reduction is HIV prevention. It's sterile supplies, it's naloxone, it's fentanyl test strips, it's free testing. It's meeting people where they are, without judgment, without conditions. It saves lives, it prevents HIV, and here in Maine, it's available confidentially and
harmony with where national sentiment is. Because when you have to do that, with the bill as popular as the Save America Act is, over time, those filibustering the bill will find that their arguments, and they personally, are becoming less popular. That the legislation, insofar as they can't identify legitimate arguments against it, which they can't. I've heard them for weeks on end when they debate this. They're terrible arguments. This would work, but it requires courage, legislative courage, and it requires patience and a willingness to work harder than we've been accustomed to working. The Senate schedule is part of the problem. The truncated legislative work week, interspersed with a lot of lengthy recesses, will never be conducive to actually doing what we need to do in the Senate.
Yeah, please enjoy your vacation for the rest of the summer. You know, it's not like there's other things to do. Like, have a great time. I think you're looking down the barrel of weeks of vacation, starting today, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's part of the problem. Now, look, I'm not a believer that we always need to be passing more legislation. A lot of federal legislation is not worth passing. It's not worth having. We'd be better off with fewer federal laws rather than more. But there are some areas where circumstances in the law, changes within our country, problems that we are confronting, are knocking on the door. They do require a federal solution because this can have only a federal solution. It's existing federal law under the 1993 National Voter Registration Act that has, interpreted more recently by the Supreme Court, has created this problem where the states are in many instances prohibited from verifying citizenship at the time of voter registration. That's why we have to act. When there's work like that has to be done, it can be done only by Congress. It is a dereliction of duty for us to recess as often and for as long a time as we do.
Yes. Very quickly here, there's been reports that multiple senators are simply doing this as a blood grudge against the president, and they know that this is something that would make the president very popular and would help him electorally and help MAGA electorally, and they're just doing it out of spite. Is that true?
I don't know. It's very difficult to read into somebody else's mind, to speak for them what their subjective motives are. That said, there is at least anecdotal evidence that could support that there's some of that at play. We've got a couple of senators who have manifested a lot of deeply rooted resentment against the president. And to whatever degree that comes into play, I think that's unfortunate. I think it's wrong. Because, look, regardless of how they feel about the president or why they feel that way, the American people shouldn't be punished by that. The American people shouldn't be deprived of safe, fair, legitimate elections as a result of a disagreement that they've got with the person who's running a coordinate branch of government. By the way, my friend Bernie Moreno, the good Bernie, there are two Bernies in the Senate. I referred to Bernie Moreno last night as one of the Bernie bros, and he got a good chuckle out of it. Bernie was born in Colombia, moved to the United States as a young child. He went down to Colombia.
He was on yesterday. Talking about it. This is amazing. Yeah.
He explained what happens down there, what they do. It really is amazing. These guys have an election security system that is fantastic. And the fact that we are light years behind them, that they're light years ahead of us is sad. We ought to be able to do what they do, and there's no reason why we can't.
Final question here, because I think that it's like a perfect segue into the online conversation about USAID and what that organization truly was. I know that you speak. Am I correct that you speak Spanish? That you speak fluent Spanish? You spent some considerable time. You spent considerable time in Central America, right?
Yeah, I was a missionary in the lower Rio Grande Valley on the Texas side. Nobody spoke Spanish in that era. We're talking about down in the McAllen, Texas area. So I had to learn Spanish. It was sink or swim.
So my question is, I hear a lot of people, a lot of little birdies, chirp at me about what's going on. They're not done with USAID. There's going to be some major reveals about what was actually happening inside of that organization. They're going to be devastating and potentially criminal. As somebody who's so good at rooting out fraud and abuse in government, can you please encapsulate, what was USAID? Why are the Democrats bankrupt now? The DNC is $3 million in debt. Why is the right winning in now what is a landslide throughout Central America after the defunding of USAID? Is there a connection there?
Yeah, there may well be. I mean, first of all, let's remember, Benny, that Marxism is flawed, and any system rooted in it, whether operating under the auspices of socialism, of communism, whether it's calling itself fascism, or any of the other Marxist flavors, it doesn't work. And whenever it's used, it fails, and you can deceive some of the people some of the time. You can't deceive most of the people most of the time, and eventually it catches up with you. Now, as to the connection between the demise of USAID funds, their non-availability, and the election of governments that no longer embraced Marxism, let me just say this. Starting about 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago was when I first started hearing about a potential connection between USAID funds and election outcomes in various countries throughout Central, South America, Europe, and elsewhere, tilting sharply to the left. The way it happened was a handful of people would come in and ask for a meeting with me. Many of them were government officials, members of elected lawmakers from various, usually smaller countries, Europe, Central America, South America, wherever, who started suggesting, while I can't prove it completely, I have it on somewhat good authority that USAID funds are routinely being funneled through various channels and directed into funds that themselves will facilitate left-wing candidates. And that those are then commingled with George Soros money and other radical leftist donor money in order to springboard these leftist candidates around the world, especially in smaller countries where American dollars can go a long way toward tilting the outcome. And that's very often how more conservative, more liberty-minded governments are losing to Marxist-inspired candidates and governments. And so that was a source of great frustration. I looked into it. In some circumstances, there appeared to be real credibility to it. And that's why I started raising red flags about USAID about a decade ago. When the funding was finally withdrawn in the last year or so, I thought, okay, we will see now what impact that might make. I can say this, the anecdotal evidence since then suggests that there may well have been a stunning connection between USAID funding and the election of left-wing governments around the world, especially in smaller countries.
And terrorism. And drug smuggling. And
that too. Look, when the U.S. government writes blank checks, whether at home or abroad, it should shock no one
crop circles
that those things will be subject to waste, fraud, and abuse. And it should shock no one that those funds will eventually be used to help advocate for Marxism in one form or another at home and abroad.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. It really does beg the question. You know, the Marxist sweep yesterday in New York. Every single one of those Marxists were either foreign-born or their parents were foreign-born, and they came here with such a deep understanding of American funding systems. And it's like, well, this is the farm team, obviously. This is what Barack Obama's talking about with his Obama Foundation. This is what they're creating. It's pretty obvious to see. Is there enough time to reverse it? I'm not sure. But the man to reverse it would be Mike Lee in the Senate, champion for freedom, the guy who's just constantly fighting, like a gorilla, like an animal for the Save America Act, and he's gonna get it. I mean, you have the mandate from heaven. I say, Mike. That's what I say. You got the mandate from heaven, man. You know, every live long day, you're proven more right here.
Or at least a mandate from Benny. Different from letters from heaven. A mandate from Benny. That matters too.
Dangerous. Well, the Benny Brigade is behind you. The Benny Brigade is behind you, and look at that. So close to 700,000 for Mike Lee. Yeah, everybody go in and just follow Mike Lee right now at base Mike Lee, and let's get him to 700,000 right now. Today, we're gonna do it. 700,000, and there's gonna be a. I know that Mike Lee is going to do something special when he hits that number. So, thank you so much, Senator. Godspeed. Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you. It's good to talk to you, Benny. Thanks for all you do.
All right. God bless you, man. Patriot Mobile. We call the Patriot right there. We call a couple of Patriots. Great show. Patriot Mobile. Our dear friends, people who keep us locked and connected. We're going to be doing a little bit of travel here and there, and well, some of it is going to be Patriot Mobile inspired. I just want to say, the Patriot Mobile Wi-Fi hotspots, man, they're amazing. If you were traveling in places that were hard to reach, like we were in Montana, woo, it's a lifesaver, honestly. Patriot Mobile can get you connected with the only Christian conservative wireless provider right now. Do it. You can keep your phone, you can keep your number, you can keep everything. It's easy. Happen right away. Or you can change everything and upgrade. Either way, the only conservative Christian wireless provider in America protecting free speech. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT. Put the promo code Benny for a free month of service. patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT today. I don't know if I'm ready to call two little patriots in. We got special guests here that are not in the script, but that are my daughters, who have been making their 4th of July special bracelets, and they wanted to show you live today. So, here we go. This is Juliet and Eloise. My wife texted me during the show and said that Juliet and Eloise wanted to show you their special bracelets that they made. So here they are for the 4th of July. Very nice. Can we get a round of applause? Everyone's cheering. There you go. So these are the these are 4th of July dresses.
I made a ring.
You made a ring? Oh, that's beautiful.
They're 4th of July dresses.
Here they are. Do you have anything nice you'd like to say for the 4th of July?
And go on the water slide. And we are gonna get coconut drinks and lots of fruit. And we're gonna go in the pool.
That's gonna be so fun.
Last year we went to the Trump property in Miami for the 4th of July they do a special fireworks show. So we got invited back this year, and I think that's where we're gonna go. We're very excited about it, and you'll see updates from us. No better place to spend the 4th of July. Oh, hey, babe. You have anything you want to say?
Okay.
As being 3. You love the comment section. Say happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July!
Hey, those are beautiful. Can Daddy get one?
You need one.
Oh, can you make one? Thank you.
Alright, tell everybody bye.
Bye!
Bye-bye. That was amazing. I'll see you in a minute, baby. It's a family show. It's a family show. We talk about this constantly. That they want bracelets. Okay. Well, maybe we'll put the bracelets. Maybe we'll make the bracelets available on BennyJohnson.com. And we'll put them up on the site. Okay. Bracelets in the Benny store. That's the motivation. That's it. That's the motivation. That's why we keep fighting. That's why we have to put our heads down, stiff upper lip, chip on the shoulder, and that's what we're fighting for. That's it. I want to be able to provide not just the ability to go watch the fireworks in Miami for my kids, because all that stuff, that's just the fringe benefits. I want to provide a stable, safe, and secure society and nation for them. That's like the inheritance I want to give to them. The Proverbs say that a blessed and righteous generation leaves an inheritance for their children's children. That inheritance is the nation. And so that's what I want to build. For my kids, of course, but then also for your kids, your grandkids. That's what we're all doing together here. So when my wife texted me and said they have 4th of July bracelets, I said, bring them on the show. I show people around. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what a fun show! Big breaking news. So we're gonna get to that. I did want to say that we have
those are really fun
a
to
partner
make
here
too.
with Advantage
And
Gold.
it's
We
good
talk about them a lot.
for, what do they call
Obviously,
that?
sort of blending into with my
Sometimes
children.
the nervous system
Make sure that you are
doing
investing in things that withstand the
needle
test of
point or
time.
Anything that you have to
Buying precious metals, something you can pass on to
like
your
threading
children.
a needle, yeah, kind of.
You can do it smartly, and you can leave it to them as a physical asset of value. And so, Advantage Gold is who I trust for that. They've been our partners for a long time. We're working even more with them today, now more than ever. I just like the diversification. Constantly thinking about what are we leaving to our kids. I trust Advantage Gold. They're America's top rated precious metals company for the people who are precious in your life. Text Benny to 85545. Text Benny to 85545. No cost, no obligation, no pressure. And you can start investing in things that actually withstand the test of time. Ladies and gentlemen. Let's see here. Well, exciting time. A great show. And a bunch of breaking news that we need to get to. So, including saving our elections. Will the Supreme Court bar counting mail-in ballots after Election Day? Now, we didn't get that ruling. Too bad. That's something that is before the Supreme Court right now. But I'd love to get that ruling. Here's what the prediction markets say. The prediction markets say that they might. Let's see, I'm loading it right now. Are we loading? No? Here we go. 79% chance. Now that would be awesome. There's something to leave you with. It's like a little with uplifting. If you stopped the delivery of fraudulent mail-in ballots and you stopped the counting of mail-in ballots after Election Day, these are ballots that arrive after Election Day. Remember, in California, you could just squiggle the date on there. It can arrive at any time. Well, you'd get rid of so much fraud in our nation. And then you pass the Save America Act, and it's game over. The fraudsters. So let's do that. Good vision casting here, ladies and gentlemen. Our verse of the day, Matthew 10:16. I am sending you out like sheep among the wolves. Therefore, be shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. Woo! What a rich and deep verse that is. Be shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. I don't really know. I don't really know how to process this one, except for this. Like, they're as shrewd as a snake. That's what we're being commanded to do by Christ, our Lord and Savior, who's sending us out. It says, don't be rolled over. I got into a little Twitter debate yesterday. The pastor that I think is really cool, his name's Josh Howerton, and he wasn't debating me, but we were going back and forth a little bit about verses of the Bible, and how Christian pastors try and knit together this fabric of open borders and try and make open borders a Christian thing. It's not. It's not a Christian thing, and it is actually an immorality. And there's a lot of ways to build that argument. But here's one: be as shrewd as snakes. Don't roll over. Don't be a wuss. Don't let people take advantage of you. Don't be somebody who can just be trifled with. The Christian church has been so weak in the past and has become fat, lazy, and soft. And that is not what built Western civilization. It was the strong man and the Christian man that did that. The shrewd man. And we should be innocent of sin. We should be innocent as doves. We should wish to have purity of heart. So head out, ladies and gentlemen, with me in order to refound this nation. I think that's what's happening right now. A refoundation of America is very exciting. A lot of exciting things in the future lined up. Thank you for being here in community with us. We march together on to victory that is assured. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
Where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salt in all the lips, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salt in all the lips, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.
To this building right here, and as the video continues on, obviously you have several collapsed buildings in front of it. I want you to look at buildings like this. Again, might appear to be standing, but can anybody actually return and live, work, etc. inside there? And the answer is no, particularly with the earthquakes that are predicted to be coming along. At least a magnitude 5 USGS is expecting. And then let's look at this high-rise structure that this guy's in and the amount of damage that's done to the structural integrity of that building. If you have people that are still living in these buildings, all right, that likely have nowhere else to go, and they're going to say hell with it, and they're going to run it, just despite the fact that the government told these people to stay on the streets and get the hell out of these buildings. There's going to be people that are going to go back into these buildings. This is a fact. There's going to be people that are going to be walking around looking at this destruction, and after 1 to 2 days of being on the street, they're going to get a relative feeling of safety. And then another quake is going to strike, right? And when that quake strikes, the odds that some of these buildings start to go down are also big. And so what we have for damage on the ground right now, in my opinion, is just the beginning of it. If there is another large quake, which somebody already said there was a 4.5 aftershock already, and I pulled up the data and I said there was, let me get this, 20 to 30 reported aftershocks so far, and USGS has a high forecast of a magnitude of 5 plus and possible 6 plus earthquake in the coming days. It's going to be hitting Venezuela, and if that's the case, those buildings collapse with additional people inside. It's not gonna be pretty, man. It's going to be much worse than I think people even realize. So I for one don't want to see.
Right now we're watching a live feed that actually shows 8 individuals just cross the border illegally. So they're trying to see if they get into a vehicle and take off, or if they're going to stay on foot.
So the U.S. border is still under assault from people crossing it, flooding our highways as they make their way into the country's interior for purposes that will no doubt fail to improve the United States for both citizens and legal immigrants who make it great, because a great opportunity exists for criminal organizations to make millions bringing their customers into America while certain politicians fight to reopen the border.
This is huge. A strike on a gang leader in his own country. We've been doing this for a while in South America, Central America, and certainly in Mexico. However, not with this kind of level of unprecedented assistance from the government itself.
This looks like an ordinary electrical store in the United States. But at the back, U.S. police found an opening beneath the tiles. They went down a carefully constructed tunnel which was 17 meters below ground. One inlet in San Diego in the United States found an opening across the border in the Mexican city of Tijuana, nearly 600 meters away.
So this is part of our joint operation with Border Patrol, anti-smuggling operation. So preventing them from loading up the vehicle, agents and the troopers are able to move in, closing up roads. Of course, as you saw, we moved in, we just kind of scattered and run.
But they've got tentacles into Chile, into Peru, into Colombia, and when we got that mass exodus, that migration in 2017, 2018, and after from Venezuela, many of these guys snuck themselves into the United States.
Huge majority of people digging through
Until August got injured, I never heard of the Fisher House.
I want you to
It made it
picture
very easy
yourself
to be
as
there to
one of those
support my
people on
brother.
the ground, and I want you to
August
think
had
about
twin
where they're going to be
surgeries.
getting their food and water
I
from.
don't know how
So
my
while they might
family
have the
all
initial
could have
energy to go over, they're going to be pulling a
without
lot
a
of
Fisher.
bodies out. They're going to be doing as much as humanly possible here. But the human factor also comes into play. And the
So
human
there's
factor
work
that
going
food
on
and
to
water for
finish
people right now
securing the U.S.
is not
border,
coming in.
and once this
They're gonna have
happens,
to
getting
resort
across
to
is going to
some
be even
measures
tougher.
in order to
And
get
what
that to
nobody's
happen.
talking about is the reason we've got even more smuggling attempts happening now is because these criminals are under a lot of pressure. They know they're on limited time at the worst possible time. Not for the United States, but rather for these gangs that reside outside of America and seek to exploit it, because now that a peace plan is on the table in the Middle East, the eyes of the Trump administration are already turning back to our hemisphere, where we are witnessing the transformation of South America into an area of the globe unsafe for any criminal organization, which will allow countries like Venezuela to once again become engines of prosperity for their own people. There is now a full court press on these criminals in South America. There's no country down there where they can hide. Remember, Venezuela, that used to be a sanctuary country run by a cartel, but now that Nicolas Maduro is in a New York City jail and has been extracted, these criminal organizations, they are on the run and they are getting buried. And the fugitives you see exploiting our country's border without permission right now know their time is limited. They better act now before the U.S. military can turn even more attention to securing our border and our hemisphere from them, as they do everything they can to make money selling a counterfeit version of the American dream, which is an absolute scam, not just for the people who buy it, but for those inside of our country who think an open border somehow makes it safer.
or better. Which brings us to another reason we're seeing such a rush of criminal activity at the southern border. There's an effort right now inside America, led by certain politicians, to reopen that border. And what a better example of why it should be reopened than people who want to come here and can't. And this is supposed to turn the American people against the idea of border security, even though, according to recent polling, most people living in this country want to see the powers that be come together on an issue that everyone thinks is important. But the fascinating thing happening now is that radical politicians intent on remaking America in their socialist image, they're not moderating their positions at all. If anything, they're doubling down on the idea of no borders, which is music to the ears of smugglers and criminals who are now doing things to get into the country that defy logic and imagination.
Absolutely disgusting. Right? Absolutely disgusting. I don't know what the answer is going to be for this. This is likely
That's while 39 people were in the back of that truck, and that's recent footage. And America is full of trucks. There are millions of these things on the road, and this one just so happened to have almost 40 people in it who weren't supposed to be here at all. And the only reason it got here was with the help of a criminal organization. But now the question is, how are these criminals crossing the border to begin with and bringing people in? And just how easy is it to get across where there's not a wall just yet?
So this is part of our joint operation with Border Patrol, anti-smuggling operation. So they had a group of 8 that was on one of our drones that was capturing them. So preventing them from loading up into a vehicle, agents and the troopers were able to move in, closing down the group. Of course, as you saw, we moved in, we just kind of scattered and run in different directions, but now with all the resources that we have dedicated to border security, more agents in the field, more troopers, working together, they closed them in, and they were able to apprehend 5.
Wow. So would you consider that a success?
It is awesome, because you gotta look at it this way, those are potential gotaways, so we just know even one getaway is critical to border security, because you don't know exactly where the person is, why they're coming across, why they're trying to go undetected. So we're able to apprehend 5, and of course working together really shows the critical work that's so important with our border issue, as we keep ongoing with Operation All Star, part of the governor's initiative. That's crazy. Tactics always can adapt to what we're doing, and I think you saw that today. Of course, we've seen that in previous events, especially when it pertains to commercial vehicles. We have 20 in a commercial truck, most recently 39.
He just mentioned the 39-person commercial trucking bust that we just looked at. So this is still happening. He says 20, 30 people in a truck. This is normal. It's happening. But he also mentioned that these cartels are changing up their tactics. And just as the individuals that were fleeing were tracked down with the help of a drone, these criminal organizations, they've got drones too. And that's how they spot the right moment in their minds to try and make a break to cross the border. They are monitoring law enforcement on the U.S. side of the border, just as law enforcement is monitoring them. And what you have at the border is basically a standoff, a Cold War, if you want to call it that, of people trying to use intelligence to subvert each other and to get around each other and to capture each other. And as you're about to see, going over the border or going across on land, that's not the only thing these criminal organizations are up to. Watch.
This looks like an ordinary electrical store in the United States.
Sure.
But at the back, U.S. police found an opening beneath the tiles.
Oh, yeah?
They went down the carefully constructed tunnel, which was 17 meters below ground.
Wow.
The structure had steps going down, a ventilation system, and even a power supply.
Well, it's an electric
An
store.
electric cart on tracks which were made. One ended in San Diego in the United States found an opening across the border in the Mexican city of Tijuana, nearly 600 meters away.
Look at that.
The discovery came after a long investigation. For 6 months, U.S. police monitored the electrical store in the United States.
Wow.
Until one day they saw a large...
Wow, so you had people at an electronics store who were up to something. The U.S. authorities knew there was something going on here. They knew there was something fishy, but they needed a reason to go in and make some arrests. Then they got that reason, and what they discovered was this pipeline between the U.S. and Mexico that went underneath all of the border infrastructure out there and let people come into America. Who knows how many individuals traversed this thing, what their plans were, what they were up to once they got here, who they may have brought into the country along with them. It's very frightening to think that stuff like this is happening in what looked like legitimate businesses. That place was masquerading as an electronics store. There were probably people going in there to get their refrigerator fixed. And obviously, a tunnel like this isn't going to work for smuggling massive numbers of people into the country that are paying tens of thousands of dollars each. That's not going to happen through one of these. But what would criminals need a tunnel like this for? Well, if you've got criminal operations on the U.S. side of the border and on the other side of the border, what happens is you need people who are going to monitor those operations. And that's how these high-level cartel operatives get into the country. This tunnel's for one person or a small group of people to come into the country to keep tabs on other operations these gangs have going. And that's what these cartels need. They need a way to traverse the border because that's how they make their money. And that's how they run these operations. That's how these criminals are even inside the country to begin with and can seemingly come and go at will. And here we have a specific example of that. Here we have a vehicle. All of the occupants of the vehicle left. The vehicle just came. What? Oh, look. See, they're running? But who's driving this vehicle? Who's in here? Wait till you see it. Look, they're a residential neighborhood. Here come the officers.
On top of this building is working.
All the entrances are blocked.
Look at that truck right there.
She rode that sucker probably all the way to the
inside someone's garage.
And ended up getting trapped inside there. And there's
Look at
so
this guy.
much going on over inside Venezuela.
Look at this guy.
Is literally just sitting there watching.
Wait till you see who he is.
Trying to get people's attention. Same thing with the other guy.
This guy,
I mean, this is
he is a
freaking nuts, the amount of stuff that they
confirmed
have.
Gulf cartel
So,
member. And he was just arrested in a
itself,
smuggling
like I
bus.
said,
Now,
ladies and
what
gentlemen,
would a
is going to be a
confirmed
massive
cartel
undertaking.
member be
How do
doing
you say
running
it's gonna
around
be
the
drones to
interior
bring
of the
people
United States of
trapped
America?
behind
Well,
food
it's simple.
and
They're
water?
here
That's actually true.
leading a criminal operation.
That's
In
not
this case, they
a
were
bad
doing
idea.
the smuggling themselves. But in other
again,
cases,
you run into
these
the
people are here to keep
drones,
tabs on the
electricity,
quote-unquote
power,
customers
etc.
that they bring into the
Council
country.
survivors
Because you
say,
see
yes,
the
if
people
we can
coming
help,
across,
then help,
they
like
have to
Christ
pay
would.
massive amounts of money to these criminal organizations
that shouldn't be a
that they do
question.
not have.
That should be
Cartels do
something
not work
that,
on the honor system. They'll
people
bring
just
people into the
do out of
country
goodness of their
with a
heart.
promise that that money's going to get paid back. And how does it get paid back? Well, it gets paid back because you have enforcer characters like this gentleman watching and making sure that people aren't illegally working and aren't illegally earning money, which then gets sent back to these groups, empowering them, which can sometimes take years. I mean, some of these debts are $10,000, $20,000. And obviously a criminal organization that can't enforce its own criminal activity isn't going to last for very long, which explains why you have people like this in the country. They are here to make sure things keep running, and that's bad news for the law-abiding on both sides of the border.
This is a simple
In this
lesson
video, you
in
can see
humanity,
FBI
in my
agents
opinion.
armed with guns
Like,
go
if you
inside the
can't
St. Peter's home
get it through your
on
thick
Park
skull
Charles Boulevard
that
South
Oh, yeah?
people
morning.
need help, and
That's an
okay,
agent screaming
right? Like,
hands up in
you shouldn't look
Spanish.
at this in
A
any
witness
other
who
way.
took this video said agents
and I'm gonna
arrested
be honest
20
with you,
people.
man, I hate Russia with
Living with
every
schizophrenia,
ounce of my soul.
I was questioning
But if
what
this
was
was
real
going on
and what
over
wasn't.
inside Russia, I would
felt like a
be
visitor
saying
in my
the
own
same
life.
thing. If this was going on
Until my doctor and I
over inside
decided
of Turkey,
on
I would be
Invega
saying
Sustenna,
the same thing.
the #1 long-acting injectable for
It's just
schizophrenia.
sad. You
Now,
know,
I
as
finally
long
found
as
the
people
power of
get
lasting
safe.
symptom
I mean,
control.
the vast
And I
majority
feel
of the
present
people
in
of
every
these different
moment.
countries
Invega
who
Sustenna
do
is
not
an
like the
injection
regimes
given
that
by a
rule over
provider
them
to
and
treat
do not like
schizophrenia
what's
in
taking
adults
place
after
inside of
initial
them.
dosing.
We saw
Only
it with
Invega Sustenna
Iran,
helped
right?
keep 90% of
You
adults
can be, as
episode-free in
Incog
a
just
clinical
said, you
study.
can be
Invega Sustenna
American
is not for everyone.
first
Elderly dementia
and
patients have an
still
increased
have
risk of death or
compassion.
stroke.
Thank
Call
you
your
very
doctor
much
if
for
you
that
have
donation,
uncontrollable
sir, and
muscle
thank you very much
movements,
for
as
those
these
words.
can become permanent, or if you have high fever,
And
stiff muscles,
truthfully,
confusion,
an
dizziness
American
upon
First
standing,
agenda,
seizures, or increasing
going in and helping
prolactin.
these
Other risks
people out
include increased
is
cholesterol,
something
weight
that
gain,
actually
heart
changes
rate,
our
and high
stance
blood
in the
sugar,
United
which
States,
can
because
lead
you
to
also
coma
have
or
to
death.
remember,
These are not
for
all
the
serious
last
side effects.
3 years, the United
This is
States of
me.
America
This is now.
has been accused of supporting
Invega Sustenna.
genocide, has been accused of waging unjust wars, and it's been nothing but bad PR after bad PR after bad PR. And it is time, in my opinion, to remind the world that we do more, that we are the country that is capable. If there was a single country that was to go in and actually help these people out, that has the actual ability to do it, to actually go in and help these people out, it would be the United States of America. No other country on this planet has the ability to actually show up with the proper assets and actually take control of the situation and fix it. U.S. can't be a Christian nation if its values ain't there. And that's something that I've been telling people for a while too. You look at what is going on across the United States of America. Look at Los Angeles, look at New York, look at the state of Colorado, look at Washington, look at Oregon, look at all of the crap that is being pushed around our country. With all of the stuff like that that's being pushed around our country, it is dang near impossible to scream, we are a Christian nation, when our country mimics that of Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, it's just a fact. And so for anybody that's still sitting back screaming, that's what we are, I highly encourage you to take a look around at what's going on. If we are a Christian nation, we have been taken over.
20 people. No one answered the door Thursday morning, and an hour later, 5 on your side learned 56-year-old Galenghi and Dijanhi were charged for bringing in and harboring immigrants living here illegally. Defendant Galenghi is also the manager of Golden Apple Buffet in St. Charles. One witness said a group of employees would come to work in a van.
So what we have here is we have a corrupt business inside the United States who wants to run itself with people who are not supposed to be in the country. And they've got a smuggling operation going on here, which they can only operate with the help of criminals. And criminals have been busted in areas of Florida running operations that also require a van to bring people to the interior of the country who get dropped off by smugglers that might bring them across the water. And when you combine water-based incursions with incursions on land, that is a tempting proposition for criminal businesses to try and undercut their competitors, to try and have a labor force that they have leverage over. This is all very scary. It's very frightening. It's not helping anybody because the jobs at these businesses should go to people that are here in the United States and are in a legal capacity and are protected by all of the labor laws that we've fought so hard for in this country that protect workers. But no, that's not what these guys want to do. They want to run a criminal organization, and this is exactly what it looks like. Here, we have a stash house run by gang members busted by Texas DPS. Look at this.
How y'all doing? Hey, with the state police, hey, everybody's gonna have to leave. They don't want anybody here, okay? So, who else here? Is there anybody else in here?
Looks like a hotel room.
Where are the other people at?
Oh, they're hiding.
Cracking down on drug traffickers, keeping minors safe.
Is there anybody else in here?
Also voted for national voter ID.
Is there anybody else?
Elections from fraud. Senator
Susan
Collins delivering on rural healthcare.
There's a lot of people in this hotel room.
There's nobody else in here.
On securing our
Okay,
elections.
well the hotel doesn't want everybody here. Yeah, so I need you to come out and I need to see some IDs because you don't know. Yeah, they don't want everybody out here.
They know something's up.
That's what I said. The hotel doesn't want you here. It's their property. That's right.
What is happening in your life.
No, you need to get your stuff. Let's go.
There's a lot of cops outside. Watch. They know what they're walking into. There's something going on here.
Hey.
More people.
Get up.
Oh. Wow. Oh. Smuggling operation. Maintaining a stash house.
Right now you're under arrest. Maintaining a stash house.
You guys are joining the company. I get it.
Not a stash house. We were just sleeping. So, we've got some gang members who are here illegally. Look at this. It's crazy, man. This is dangerous. Now, these individuals, if they're criminals and they've come into the country illegally, they'll probably pay off whatever they owe for getting here in an illegal manner as well by doing some heinous thing that would get them arrested and land them in the slammer. This does not help our country at all. And even that hotel that got business for being rented out and used as a stash house temporarily doesn't help them either, because now those criminals are gone. Now the reputation of that place is in the tank, because look at what police are uncovering here. And these criminal organizations, the reason they're getting so desperate, the reason they're doing everything they can to get as many people into the country now is because they were making $13 million a year exploiting the border, but after Trump got elected, all of that stopped. There is no more border exploitation on a massive scale like there was before. And at the exact same time this is happening, the U.S. military is taking steps to secure the rest of Central and South America against these criminals back home, which means they're not safe in America anymore, and they're not safe in what used to be their home base anymore. Watch this.
Here is the Secretary of War yet again, CBS, just yesterday. Watch.
Should Americans understand that the U.S. will remain militarily involved in Venezuela? Should they expect similar operations in places like Ecuador and Guatemala, where the U.S. is working with their government?
It's already happening.
It's called the America's Counter Cartel Coalition, ACCC, and we're forming it with partner governments all around Central and South America to go after, defeat, and destroy foreign terrorist organizations, cartels. And all those countries you named are stepping up to work on partnerships with the United States.
Okay, wow. So,
Susan Collins supported Trump's Medicaid cuts. Healthcare is getting even more expensive. People are losing coverage. But Susan Collins gave Trump a blank check for his war in Iran. Tell Susan Collins to stop siding with Donald Trump.
Very active. Very active. Vacancies. No Wi-Fi, no swimming pool, no fun, lots of vacancies. I love it.
There's a better way to make changes to the work schedule.
Listen, you gotta make people safe. You know, I look at my hometown when I work. Our hometown, okay?
The Counter Cartel Coalition. That's essentially NATO for Central, South America, and the United States, but without these squabbling European nations that don't want to do anything and don't want to stand up to the bad guys. These are countries that are fully vested in law and order, and that are fully invested in protecting their own people and bringing prosperity back to their borders. And you know what stops prosperity? Criminals that earn unlimited amounts of money and can arm themselves and become more powerful than their own local government. That's the problem that the United States has seen in Mexico for decades. A criminal organization or groups of criminal organizations, you have more than one cartel over there that are so strong, the Mexican military and the police are always a few steps behind and maybe outmanned in some cases. But now that's over, because you've got governments like Ecuador was mentioned here, El Salvador, all of these other countries. They are so happy to have help from the United States. And what you have is you have U.S. intelligence teaming up with local police and local military who know the streets and who know where these criminals are hiding to take out their operations and make arrests. So these guys, these crooks, they don't have a place to hide anymore. They can't hide in America unless they get to a sanctuary city, then they can try. But they don't have a home base. And if your home base is gone and your offshoots in another country are gone, what's the point of your organization? How do you run a criminal organization like that? You don't. These are getting shut down. And this is a big win for the law-abiding everywhere. It does not help the law-abiding in Mexico or in any country in South America to have criminals that run the place. It doesn't help the law-abiding in the United States to have criminals running businesses and taking jobs out of the workforce and arming themselves and doing things in hotel rooms and breaking our laws every step of the way. The law-abiding suffer everywhere. And if you want to help people, if you really want to help a country, don't open your country's doors and say that there's an asylum crisis and say that everybody can come in. No, make things better in that country. By doing what? By getting rid of the criminals. Then people can live and thrive anywhere. Isn't that good? Isn't that the ideal we should all be fighting for? That's what a closed border does. What do you think about that? I'll see you in the next video.
Did the Revolutionary Guards make the uranium, which is the most dangerous nuclear material in Iran, disappear? And why are they so afraid of nuclear vectors in Iran? Iran is recruiting young Iranians into the ranks of the Hezbollah terrorist organization. Against the backdrop of the heavy blows that Hezbollah suffered from the IDF forces, Iran has begun recruiting young Iranians and training them for service in the terrorist organization in Lebanon. The Gulf states sense an approaching Iranian trap, but the White House promises everything is under control. In the shadow of the negotiations with Iran, the commander of CENTCOM is expected to meet in Israel with the IDF chief of staff and with defense minister Israel Katz. The Gulf states no longer fully trust the United States and have opened a parallel track of agreements directly with Iran.
Ebola is one of the world's deadliest diseases. Senator Susan Collins is leading the fight to stop Ebola through American innovation. Thanks Senator Susan Collins for delivering for Maine and supporting life-saving international aid.
We're all part of the animal world in our own ways, so help them out with products from your local Paris Farmers Union.
He is charismatic. I mean, he talks. You just want to listen to him, and he's passionate about his agents. And he cares. You know, a lot of bosses, he can give you lip service, benefits, everything in place. Everything he's telling you he's going to do, puts in place, which is huge. He cares about you. Knowing he cares, has your back, it's easy to work your hand. That's great. I haven't slept at 1 o'clock in 9 years since I've been here. 9 years, I haven't slept at 1 o'clock. Really? And I get up every morning on time, literally. So I just love to come to work. There's many days I get up at 5 o'clock, I'm still on my dinner on the other side of the county. He still does stop. And if you don't do something for me, I'm going to pull over. Got it. Okay, so 73. Nice to meet you. Pull to the left side. See Arizona? Straight everybody off. Alright. Yeah. We're going to show catch you some champions on pull over on 73 and 55. We go so fast. Come on. Registration, we can check something down record. Give me a second. Yes, sir. Yeah, I was unbelievably impressed with that leadership appointment. I just like that's these are good news. But you know what? I'm not blessed when I tell you I'm not that guy who asks for money. I'm not that guy. I look for favors. I'm gonna work hard. And you take care of us, our agency. That's all I ask. I mean, we met each other around an hour. We might be stay at his house. I was like, don't do that. It's any fun. I will show up on your doorstep like, hey. Yeah, bring out some days. Yeah, you got some meatballs in here. Like, I'm hungry. But you guys are some different times too. So I'm sure she got a little style. Oh, yeah. Right, yeah, she's a nice lady. Super nice. Be careful pulling out, right? Yes, sir. I'm going to shoot so we're at 392 John. Yes, sir. Unlike most traffic units, yours is fully marked. Like our push mover, regular police cars, just really fast, regular police car. Great. All your traffic units are go. No, we have, I was the first one to get this, then we have another guy in our traffic unit who makes also has one now also. We just got a third one. John, nice. What do you got for extra motors? We got 2023 Road Kings, Harley Davidsons. Okay. All right. We got my guys, not me, I know. We got the traffic units, not me. You are less scared than I am. I don't need the real guys. I'm going to go to school. I can go anytime I want. Best school you'll ever go. I think every person that rides a bike should go to that school. I've heard that. It's great. Amazing. Interesting. So you got this is on team. You got a motorcycle, and you're having a SUV. Yeah, that's really cool. It's cool. Okay, awesome. Yes, sir. And it's just trying to get in. So you're trying to get into the county. You got a motorcycle. You have a Challenger. You have a Explorer. Correct. You have the most vehicles that anyone have ever talked to the traffic. Holy cow. I try to produce the show for letting me over there. I'm good with that. There were times when issuing traffic citations are the least of the worries for the county sheriff's office members. They didn't hammer this really bad hurricanes later. Don't reach ground zero for hurricane. Okay? Ground zero. I'll never forget landing a helicopter on the beach. Grady Judd, Wayne Ivey, everybody's on the beach to help. Sheriff Chronister shows up immediately. Sends us every sheriff sent us everything we needed.
The Revolutionary Guards are once again threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz. On the other side of the United States declares that Iran no longer has the ability to block that strait. We are in 24 hours of reversal, while the Revolutionary Guards announced that they have built a protection anti-election mechanism in the Strait of Hormuz, and the United States announced that Iran has committed not to collect fees for passage through that strait. Both the United States and the IAEA expect facility or not. Well, Trump declares that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, saying it is over. The Revolutionary Guard threatens that no nuclear inspector will
like water.
And why was Turkey a candidate joining war alongside Iran? And has radical Islam inside the United States opened an internal war against America? I'm Neil Pinto, with me Kati Shoshani, and we are here at Boots on the Ground, about what's happening in Israel and also what's happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. Today is June 25th, so let's begin. Because while Marco Rubio is trying to calm the concerns over the new agreement with Iran, in Riyadh, they are sending firm messages to the White House and explaining why they are maintaining silence, exactly like Israel. Meanwhile, Trump is threatening an immediate cancellation of the talks in Tehran. They are already celebrating in American defeat. The commander of United States Central Command is expected to arrive in Israel for a meeting with IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir and with Defense Minister Israel Katz. This This is against the backdrop of the contacts between Washington and Tehran and the efforts to advance an agreement in Lebanon. The planned visit comes an hour after Katz made it clear that Israel will not withdraw from southern Lebanon, even if it is required to do so as part of the initiatives promoted by the United States.
This is Buick.
United States President Donald Trump continued yesterday to claim achievements in the agreement with Iran, as he denied the claims that were published in the Iranian media about an intention to collect fees in the Strait of Hormuz. In addition, Trump noted that no funds have been transferred to Iran at this stage, and that the funds that will be transferred will be used to purchase American products, contrary to the Iranian denials on this issue. Yesterday, the NATO Secretary General was in a tense meeting at the Oval Office in Washington. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte tried to appease President Trump and present a narrative of European support for a war against Iran. Using graphic charts and extravagant praise, Rutte tried to convince the President that European allies had stood by his side, but Trump was not convinced. He continued to level harsh accusations against Germany, France, Britain, and Spain over a lack of loyalty and unwillingness to carry the burden. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended the Trump administration's decision to grant Iran early sanctions relief and explained that in negotiations there is give and take. According to him, this is only a temporary step for 60 days. And in Washington, they expect Iran to meet the commitments that it accepted in the talks in Switzerland. Rubio made clear if Tehran does not meet the commitments, the president has many options on the table. But this is exactly where the sensitive point comes in. First, the United States said that sanction relief would come only after actual Iranian steps in practice. Some of the relief has already been given in advance, including a temporary waiver that will allow Iran to export oil, trade in dollars, and remove Iranian vessels from the blacklist. In Washington, they apparently see this as a reward for Iran's agreement to allow United Nations inspectors to return to the country. In Iran, of course, they deny that they made any such concession. In simple words, Trump is giving Iran 60 days of breathing room. But Rubio reminds us that this clock can also very quickly turn into an American threat. In addition, the United States President Donald Trump is looking for a budget source for the Iranian issue as part of a special budget of $80 billion for the war and regional preparations. And meanwhile, in Lebanon, the Secretary General of Hezbollah claimed that Israel failed to achieve the goals of the war and demanded a full withdrawal from Lebanon. The IDF spokesperson's unit in Arabic responded sharply and accused the organization of leading itself in abyss under the Iranian direction. And also, along the way, he took a jab at the Hezbollah Secretary General, saying, "It is a shame we don't learn from the Salah, his predecessor, that was annihilated. Israel stood by its basic security demands as a state and did not withdraw its forces from Lebanon. Because this is how it works. Israel does not surrender to extremist Islamist terror organizations that operated by Iran that want to destroy it. That's exactly what places the regional negotiation before a new challenge, because the Revolutionary Guards in Iran are trying and behind this agreement with the United States the future of the Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon. But behind the scenes, it appears that the United States and Israel have most likely reached an understanding on maintaining a military presence in southern Lebanon against the backdrop of the ongoing negotiations with Iran and the tensions surrounding Hezbollah. At the moment, it seems that the agreement between the United States and Iran is facing the greatest test of its tensions since the signing of the memorandum of understanding.
The alternative would be a worldwide depression. You know, the stupid people would have a worldwide depression, and they're stupid people. So you can only go so far. Drive somebody into the ground, a lot of bad things happen. Number one, the strait would never open because They don't like floating billion-dollar ships up and down a strait with their rockets flying over them and mines all over the place. So the strait would never be open. It wouldn't be open for a long time. So we have a very hot stock market, and we have starting to be a very low oil price.
Because you are the registered owner of this vehicle, and you do not have a valid driver's license.
It's Wednesday, June 17, 2026, and welcome back to Goodfellows, the Hoover Institution broadcast examining history, economics, and geopolitics. I'm Bill Whalen, I'm a distinguished policy fellow here at the Hoover Institution. I'll be your moderator today. If you've been watching the show, you already know that. You also already know my next move, which is to introduce the stars of our show, the Goodfellows, as we call them. So it's my honor to welcome back to our show the historian Sir Neil Ferguson, economist John Cochran, and former Presidential National Security Advisor Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. Neil, John, and H.R. are all Hoover Senior Fellows. So, gentlemen, we're going to talk about peace in the Middle East today, and then, time allowing, get into perhaps Ukraine, maybe even Cuba. So let's get right to it. Sir Neil, I turn to you. There is an MOU to be signed on Friday in Switzerland. We haven't seen the MOU itself. The Trump administration has not released it, but the Wall Street Journal did report earlier today. It saw a draft floating around at the G7 meeting. There are 13 points in all, and Neil, if you look at it, it's problematic.
According to the report, the negotiations led by the United States have attempted sides over zero.
Now that's enough to make you build an all-pretzel pantry.
Walk back parts of the understanding of Iran and to adopt a plan that better fits the Israeli interests.
Dirigo Federal Credit Union
Such a
was
plan
born and raised here in Maine, and like Mainers, we're built on grit and a lot of gumption. We know your name, we know your story, because real community starts by knowing one another. Visit us today and experience the Dirigo difference.
The discussions in Washington have still not led to a final agreement.
A dream that I had no
Radical
idea
Islam
was
in the
my
United
dream
States
until I
is
started
raising
doing
its
it.
head.
I chose
This is not
a
about
certified medical
Muslims
assistant
as a
program
whole,
because
but about
being a medical assistant
Islamist networks that are trying to
and I was already working full time
and
at the
political
hospital.
activity
My
into a
husband said,
tool
you
of
know, you
pressure
should just do it.
against the
Maybe
Western
that
foreign
decision
policy.
is difficult,
Today,
but it's
we
not
will bring you the
impossible.
details of the
It
quiet
doesn't
but
matter
very
what
dramatic
is
revolution
happening in your
taking
life.
place
This is
inside
a
some of the Islamist centers in the United States. Extremist elements are using what they call political jihad to fight Western foreign policy from within. They do this the political system to public pressure and to campaigns that present Israel and the Jews as the enemy. While supporters of radical Islam in the United States spread accusations and lies in a wave of anti-Semitism against Jews, these networks are turning into an inciting political force. And they're exploiting the West's freedom of speech in order to harm the West itself. So, as you can see, we have a lot ahead of us. So let's dive into the details. I'm here, Pinto, with Ms. Mati Shoshani, and we are boots on the ground. We bring you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel and about the war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, which is the head of the strongest axis in the Middle East. And just before we begin, I want to call on you to continue spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. Click on the subscribe button. And most importantly, do not forget to follow me, Dale Pinto, and for Mati Shoshani on social media accounts to get our view of our office of what it's like to be inside under this war. Because across Israel, the war is still being felt every day in communities under threat, in families displaced from their homes, and in emergency teams that are responding to danger at a moment's notice. The Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry is helping provide urgent practical aid where it is needed most. Your support helps supply essential assistance, training, and specialized gear for volunteers, for medical responders, and for rescue teams serving on the front lines of this crisis. These are the people who run towards danger when others are threatened. They're retreating everybody that gets hurt. They're helping the vulnerable families. They're standing ready when every second matters. But they need the right equipment, they need the right training, and they need the right resources to keep going. And that's where you can make a real difference. Because every donation donation goes directly towards saving lives here in Israel, supporting those who are serving, rescuing, and also caring for people in this difficult hour. So please don't wait. Stand with Israel in a practical and meaningful way today. You can do that by visiting IsraelUrgent.org. Again, that's IsraelUrgent.org. Begin now, because your gift can help save lives. We'll continue in spreading the truth. Help us by clicking the subscribe button on this video, TVN Israel YouTube channel, and the Pinto, and this is Boots in the Ground.
It's the Make This the Summer event at Key Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Newcastle. Right now you can lease a new 2026 Jeep Wrangler Sport S for just $279 a month. Key Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Newcastle, where satisfaction comes standard.
You could sit in your hotel room in Iceland, or you could see things that are once-in-a-lifetime experiences. When you appreciate every moment by moment, like, there's just so much significance. There's significance on the stage, but there's also significance in the streets.
It's a privileged life we live. Yeah, let's enjoy it. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Royalties. I am your host, Sean Stockman. And today, folks,
I'm here to
we have a true global phenomenon. Okay? This gentleman has redefined what it means to be a modern star. With his soulful voice, he's racked up multi-platinum hits like Location and Young, Dumb, and Broke. My favorite. And his debut album, American Teen, became an anthem for a generation, going multi-platinum.
I'm here to look with you at something much deeper and more profound than an answer. If a question comes from the mind, and the answer is to answer the mind, it will not remain with you. Nothing of what we perceive by thought or feeling, sensation, memory, and let's include in that the personal sense of self. Nothing there is stable. If you think of yourself in personal terms, then you will have to admit, I'm always changing. The way I feel is changing. What I think is changing. Who I think I am is changing. Who I want to be is changing. Who I used to be is changing. Nothing there is stable. So if we are going to search for something starting from that state of mind, whatever you may imagine you perceive or understand is equally unstable if it is only existing in the mind and to the person who is the most inconsistent and unstable phenomenon. What has satsang got to offer anyone? It can only be, at best, a kind of mirror that reflects something that is not a thing, not a thought, not a memory, not an idea, not even an answer, not even an experience. Because innumerable experiences we have had, which one have we kept? They're all floating by like clouds, tossing in the great expanse of the sky. The person itself, until now or recently, has been placed in the position of a factual self, like this is what I am. This is what I am. But this I amness is not the true I amness. It is only a reflection of consciousness in the mind that is unstable. And this is why when you feel I am this and I am that, and it keeps on changing. So I am not here to address that state of identity because it is not stable. It is not even healthy. It is not well. It is not that which is eternal in us. So if satsang has any value at all, it would be that through satsang, through gathering like this, meeting this today now, already started, that somehow some deep recognition happens inside you of something that is beyond the world that is experienced in your mind. And I'm not trying to excite you for a great experience of awakening. Oh, not like that. Because if awakening comes in the form of a great experience and whoa, 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 and we're rolling on the floor and singing hallelujah and stuff, it will also pass. So don't cling to any desire like that. What I'm pointing and hope that somehow it is recognized is that which is always here. It doesn't belong to the mind, nor to dreams, or to desires. It is always stable, always complete, always harmonious, always content, always silent, always happy. And I will call that one's true being. If we're searching for an experience, it is not somebody's experience. It is here before the sense of the somebodyness that we take ourselves to be is formed in the mind. The idea we have of who we are is an idea appearing in the mind. What you truly are is before your mind. So I don't know at this point who will listen in such a way, not deep, 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 because the self is not deep, 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 or shallow, shallow. It doesn't exist, especially on one dimension. It is a total. If it is already here, and if we could conceive of a time that is millions, billions of years ago, that which is called truth, or the pure self, or the Parabrahman, or the absolute, or the ultimate truth, has always been here. Unchanged, undisturbed by the changeful waves of the mind. If we could conceive or project of some idea called 1,000, 1,000,000 years from now, it will still be ever perfect and pure. Now, the mind might say, but we don't know, that's a fantasy. So I'm not going to speak about time to come or times past, because we'll have to go to imagination for that. I'm speaking, what about now? What is here that is stable, complete, free of anxiety, perfect in nature, peaceful, happy, natural, effortless. I don't want to tell you more about it, because only by discovering it, not creating, it cannot be created, it cannot be found by some creative exercise or process, but by simple investigation, simple and profound understanding. You don't have to be an intellectual. Sometimes too much intellectual is not going to help you even. And everyone and everything arise or appears in it, including the idea we have of ourselves, our current idea, because we always had an idea about ourselves, and we keep throwing them out and adopting new ones. So if there's anyone who is open to, not just open to, but yearning for some reason to discover what this is, then you may show your hand, if it is you. I'll read something for a bit to let you to relax, so you can relax a little bit. And first, Brian signs something I can read. Okay, just a few words. Just listen, don't think for a moment. It says, love your true self. Love your true self. Which is, we don't know. Is it love your true self? Is there a false self? Love your true self. If this was said as one statement, love yourself, love your true self, what if we don't know where to start, what it means? So it goes on to say, which is naturally happy and peaceful and bright. Awaken is like a call. Awaken to your own nature, and all delusion melt away like a dream. Is this a poet speaking here? Let's see. How much pleasure you take in acquiring worldly goods, worldly experiences. But to find happiness, you must give them all up, meaning don't be attached to them. The sorrows of duty, like the heat of the sun, have scorched your heart. The sorrows of duty, let's call duty your obligations, your responsibility, what you feel you have to do. It says what, like the heat of the sun has scorched your heart. But let stillness fall upon you with its sweet and cooling showers, and you'll find happiness. For the world is nothing, it is only an idea. Now some people go, whoa, slow down. Don't say that. The world is just an idea. How can you say the world is just an idea or a set of ideas? I said at some point, if you conceive of yourself as a person, which we all do at some point, then are you not always changing? Your thoughts are changing, mind is changing, feelings are changing, the place you live sometimes is changing, your family is changing, your relationships are changing, desires are changing, even memories are changing, our projections are changing, everything. Have you ever perceived anything at all which is not changing, including yourself? Take a moment. Whatever you perceived in the mind or through the senses are changing. Sometimes you may say, yes, but I always enjoy having cheesecake. But there's gonna be a time you don't enjoy it. You will not enjoy it. On your birthday, it comes, don't want it. And nobody can say why. Because nothing you will enjoy or suffer always. It's the nature of the mind that things are always changing. But if everything is changing, everything is changing. There must be something that witnesses that everything is changing. I'm not being mystical now. I'm not being metaphysical. Pure, simple, common sense I'm speaking. No? You say, oh, my mind is always changing, you know. Last week I called myself a revolutionary. Now I'm calling myself a pacifist. Before I was this and now I am that. Even stable profession. I used to be a doctor. I used to be a scientist. Now I call myself a gardener. It was always changing. Have you seen or experienced anything that is not changing? The world of the universal world, the manifest world, by law, is always changing. But something must be there that observes these changefulness. Even the most subtle things are changing. There's awareness of it naturally. But we just forget that without even trying, naturally you perceive things are changeful. Even when we believe, and sometimes we try to believe this will never change. I'm going to love you exactly forever and ever and ever and ever. I will never think badly about you. Yeah? Yes, in front of God I say this. I recognize that laughter. We know that is not true, but we love the feeling of just saying something eternal, something forever and ever. Even we get married, until death do us part. Also one day we were sitting under the moon and we're looking up and one of our Sangha sisters says, oh, look how beautiful the moon is. I said, yeah, it's very beautiful. She said, I wish it was always like that every day. I said, no, you don't. You wish today. But after a few days we're going, it's tired of this round moon. I like the Shiva moon. You cannot sustain unbroken connection and belief in anything you experience. So I'm not going to look and talk anymore about that. I'm going to go to some place more subtle than that. If all these things are changing and are witnessed to be changing, that which observes them changing must be relative to them not changing. Reflect. Supposing we see two balls on a string, swinging, swinging, swinging. Can any of them evaluate what is vertical? Everything is moving. So therefore, if one is moving, there must be something to say, well, nothing is still, everything is moving. That which is able to observe all things are moving, whether they're thought or feeling or memory or projection or desire. Sometimes thinking, I always wanted this. Okay, you have it. Do you always want it? No. So knowing that, I say, that in which all the things are coming and going and are perceived, that which is unchanging, that is stable, that is yourself. That is the place of the self. It cannot be seen with the senses or with the mind. It is not an object. Because it is not an object, all things and all objects, as subtle or gross as they are perceived very clearly. It is without desire. Therefore, it is without judgment. Therefore, it perceives clearly, not wanting anything from the world of the changeful. It is ever at peace. And yet, whatever we perceive, whatever is perceived in it, none of it can exist without it, that which perceives it. What's the point of all of this, Muji? Well, if you have a desire, a yearning, an urge to find that, because everyone is troubled by something. Why are we troubled by things? Because you want them to be a certain way and they won't obey your desire. Wrong or right? Yes. I have a fix, I believe this is like that, and it turns out to be like that. The things, trying to make stable that which is by nature unstable, we feel frustrated. And the one who is feel frustrated is also not stable. Frustrated today, abundantly happy the next day, then really miserable the third day. Nothing is consistent in the realm of feelings and thoughts or images. That which perceives them, but which itself is not an idea or a thought or a feeling or even a sensation or an idea or an identity, that is your stable place. How can it be recognized? I repeat in a simpler way. If you want to know, to discover that which is beyond the mind, then whatever you see, whatever feelings you have, no matter how delicious it is, it's fine. If a beautiful feeling comes, don't throw it away. Enjoy it. Because soon it will go anyway and replaced by not a nice feeling or a more beautiful feeling, but all of it is passing. It says, don't become attached to any of these, because if you're attached, don't curse the feeling. Let the feeling be. Enjoy while it's enjoyable. When it goes, don't cry. This is the purpose of saying, don't attach or identify with anything you perceive. If you do this, you will not feel disappointed. If you are aware of the mind, traffic, comings and goings, but you don't follow them, you don't attach yourself to them, and you continue just observing, but with this detached observing, at some point, it's as though they move further away from you, and they don't feel so impactful. It's as though the mind can be like this, and somehow the idea or you're experiencing feel like this also. So, whoa. Sometimes people come to me and say, Kuchi, sorry. Please put your hand on my head. I say, yeah, okay. Put your head. Heavenly, bless me, Guruji. Why? What's happening? My mind is going crazy. Now, suppose I were to say to you, you know, your mind can be totally crazy and you can be totally at peace. So how, please, how, sound like a dog. How, okay, how do I do this? And I'm saying, just, it's okay. Let the mind go, let it happen. Don't try to stop your mind. Just watch it for a moment, but don't get involved in it. Can anybody hear this? It's answering and responding to the question I asked you. Would you be up for discovering that stillness which is always present in you, which is naturally complete, naturally happy, naturally peaceful, and it is not dull, it's not boring, it is not rigid, it is the most natural. It is yourself. I'm attending to this question. If you stay observing the energy, the movement of the mind, and you stay only like witnessing, just be aware that it's happening. Not actively witnessing, not watching what's going on and try to write the story of it, but just as though like a neutral awareness of all things. But stay as the neutral awareness. Whatever comes in the picture, it's okay. You may notice them. You don't have to try and close your eyes or respond. And even if something reacts like, I don't want to see this, but that's also seen and perceived in the neutral space. If you continue to stay like this, because sometimes the mind itself will come and say, I can't do this, it's boring. And you may think it is you saying this, but it's only a thought. And if that thought is believed in, what happens? You find that there's a you who feel very disturbed by it, which you're experiencing through your imagination. So stay like this, just being aware. And at some point, it's as though all this noise is replaced by a field of peace. You didn't do anything for this. You are not a peacemaker. There's peace. And when you did not create it, you will know it is natural. It is here by itself. And the mind stuff, the personal stuff, the memories, the abuse, the projections, the wars, they feel very much like more distant, like a voice in the desert. And something is just here. And it feels naturally, I'm here. But not as the shape I've been holding to be myself. Whatever shape, whatever history I've held to be myself is also belonging to the voice in the desert, more and more distant. Now it is just a field of being. Stay with this field. Sometimes the mind says, okay, good, got it, thank you, thank you, ciao, see you next week. Boom. You got it? No. The one who feels I've got it is also just an idea of yourself that thinks it's got something, and that also will go. Every idea will go. Stay only conscious of your consciousness. First, you're conscious of your mind. Then you're conscious of your mind and your sense of person. Then you're conscious that you're conscious. When you're conscious that you're conscious, everything becomes light. Joy floods your being. A natural silence. A natural feeling of well-being. Beyond even the sense of patience or impatience, or well or unwell, beyond the field of opposites, it's almost indescribable. All I can say, its nature is peaceful, it's without agitation. And I want to say something now if you're listening, because I'm not going to say too much, because I don't believe in giving too many things like this. What I'm speaking, if you can see it, you will not feel overload. What I am sharing now, if you can directly see and you will not feel this is too much. You will not feel. It will only feel, oh, I didn't get that, if it's going into the bank of your mind, which cannot retain things anyway for very long, not authentically. If you wish to discover yourself, let me tell you now, there is not a lot of things you need to learn. It's not about amassing large amount of knowledge, but more realizing where you're looking from. Not just what you're looking at. We're used to paying attention to a lot of movement in the mind. But when you discover that there's only just this looking, and this looking is simply happening in you, when you say, but you are who? You cannot produce some details about you. It's like you're the space itself. Don't tell anybody. They'll think you're crazy. And you'll be crazy to tell them. Keep it to yourself. Keep marinating your attention just on what I'm saying. All awakened beings know exactly what I'm sharing with you. Stay with it. Stay with it. Until gradually all this duality and the noise of it drops away. And I will tell you something. Every living being is searching for this. We're just not aware that it is this. What you're searching for is what? Rest. Because every time we touch the mind stuff and person and personality and what kind of person you want to be, you disturb yourself. But we are so accustomed to the disturbance that we tolerate it and think one day, if only I get this Lamborghini, I'll be really happy and I will be complete. Some people are looking for something, some object, that when they find it, they say, then I'll be happy. And you know what happiness is? To be content. You know what contentment is? To be still. Not to be at peace. To be without desire. When you are complete and happy, you have no desire. All desires trouble us, but nobody tell you. No one can say stop desiring. Listen, you're trying to take away my rights. I have the right to desire, and the truth is, you do. We have the freedom to desire even the whole world. You can desire, but you will not be happy. Now, can we live a life in personhood and be happy? Of course, you can attain a certain degree of happiness. But complete happy? No. Because there's nothing in the world or in any world which you may get and you'll be content with always. Not even yourself. If somebody leave you and say, listen, create the best idea of yourself. You say, I would like to be this and that. Like to be. And you were to get this, at some point, you start thinking, can I exchange this for this bit? Can I do this? It is the nature of the mind that we experience in this way. And we can continue. Now I want to give you some good news. It's going to sound like good news at the moment. It's just a little break. When you discover, as you're discovering that unchanging self, no, because the mind is going, you're taking everything away. Your mind will still be perceived, but its influence will be weakening. And sometimes we're happy, but mind will still be there. Oh, you mean I can be the self and still have my mind? Something is thinking like that. The mind is thinking like that. I'll still be part of you? Yes, you'll be there. It's okay. But less and less influence. Less and less influential. Less and less important. Because the nature of the being is that it is self-content. Does it mean that, oh, I mustn't like flowers because I'm the unique, I'm ultimate, I like flowers? No, all this is natural for us. You want to dance, haha. In fact, you probably do it even more better now because you're not trying to be good at it. It's just arising out of your joy, whatever is happening. So, one who is awake, you will not hear them cursing somebody or having strong opinions about something, because they have seen that opinions are very fickle and they merely make you miserable. They have a choice to work with it more, let it go. In fact, this is what everyone is doing. We are wanting an experience, having it, and then letting it go. You have to let it go. Because if you keep holding on, you feel it starts to become miserable. You have to let it go. And actually, at some point, we recognize the greatness of just being detached from things. Not killing them,
mandarin,
but becoming less attached to them.
I like that one.
When you're less attached to them, you discover what you are already.
The cranberry mandarin wax with the coconut water incense.
You continue
It's a good combo.
just to notice that mind is coming. Of course, mind is also a wonderful aspect of ourself. All that we experience, the diversities in life, the beautiful sunsets, that lovely dress, that lovely piece of pizza, whatever. Enjoy it. There's nothing wrong. So, well, thou should not enjoy pizza because now you are a free person. That's nonsense. They will be enjoyed, but they will be momentary. And when they go, you will not cling. That's the nature of a natural life. Not saving up things to be happy with for a long time. You are the happiness that you are enjoying.
Yeah.
As you discover this, I don't want to talk in detail too much. I think my pointing is simple enough. All that is required is to follow it. Try it out for yourself. Taste and see. In the Bible is something wonderful, a sentence I remember. It says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Simple words, no? Like a child, you can say, taste the ice cream and see if you like it. Yeah, it's very nice. It says, taste what? This guidance, this looking, this contemplation, and see, not if the Lord is good. You will find. Where's the Lord? Lord, do you like that? No, here.
At the same time,
in the heart of your heart.
They already smell a trap. Marco Rubio is moving between Gulf states and trying to calm the allies of the United States. He tells them that the relief granted to Iran is temporary. That is the process of give and take. That the sanctions waiver was granted for only 60 days, and if Iran does not meet its commitments, President Trump has many options on the table. But in the Gulf, they do not leave off headlines. They live next to Iran. In Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Bahrain, they understand the risk very well. Iran attacked them during the war. It threatened their energy routes. It damaged their trust in the United States, and now they see Washington giving Tehran early relief before the world has seen a change.
And there was no way my family could afford it.
The central concern is the Strait of Hormuz. Trump says that Iran committed not to charge passage fees, not to charge insurance fees, and not to charge any payment from ships passing through the strait. He also threatens that if this information is false, the negotiations will end immediately. But in Iran, in different stories we've heard, Iran claims that perhaps there are no passage fees now during the 60-day negotiation period. After that, it receives the right to charge assistance and security services for shipping. That is a small war, but in the Middle East, small wars can become a mechanism of control. Oman and Iran have already announced an establishment of a joint working group that will discuss the future management of the traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, maritime services, and related costs. And at the same time, the Prime Minister of Qatar arrived in Oman to promote a broader negotiation track between Iran and the Gulf states. This is no longer only Washington versus Tehran. The Gulf states are beginning to build a parallel channel with Iran.
Preparations that they have
because they trust Tehran. They are doing this because they are no longer sure that the United States will know how to protect their interests until the end. This is where the big problem is created. If the Gulf states manage a separate track with Iran, Iran receives a new status. Not only a defended country after the war, not only being defeated, not only a regime under pressure, but a player that the entire Gulf must talk to make sure that the energy will continue to flow. And that's exactly the leverage that Iran is looking for. And meanwhile, the United States is trying to show that control remains in its hands.
The United States Secretary of Energy said that escorting commercial ships by the U.S. Navy significantly damaged Iran's ability to close Hormuz. According to the data that was published, within 24 hours, 72 ships passed through the strait, carrying together 19 million barrels of oil.
But
the very need for escort, alternative routes, and coordination with the International Maritime Organization proves the crisis is not over. A Liberian tanker named Stoic Warrior passed through the strait using a new route near the coast of Oman. This route was intended to bypass the main traffic lane, which was effective because of mines and maritime obstacles. The Revolutionary Guards have already threatened the use of the new route and claim that it is unauthorized and dangerous. In other words, on paper, Hormuz is open. On the ground, every passage becomes a test. And this explains why CENTCOM had previously presented Trump with a much broader plan. A military takeover of the main island in the Hormuz area, Hormuz, Barak, and additional islands, and also parts of the Hormuzgan province in southern Iran. According to the publication,
massively injured, but
the move was supposed to last 69 months. Trump examined the possibility, but did not approve it. Instead of deep ground operations, he chose a track of pressure, naval escort, and negotiations. This is a decision that teaches a lot about the current moment. The United States is still very strong, but it is not rushing to pay a long ground price inside Iran. In the meantime, Iran is trying to exploit every movement. It wants to frozen money. It wants oil release. It wants the Gulf states to speak with it directly. It wants to turn Hormuz from a military card into a diplomatic card. And it wants to preserve Hezbollah as an active force in Lebanon. The nuclear story is even more dangerous. Trump declared at the rally in Washington that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. He stated it is over. He claimed that Iran has no navy, no air force, no anti-aircraft systems, no missile launchers, production, and that its leadership has been completely eliminated. Those are strong words, but reality still requires verification. In the West, they're still asking where Iran's most dangerous nuclear material is located. This is about 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to a level of 60%.
That was the first
in other documents,
but
there's also talk about 900 pounds of enriched materials. In any case, this is an amount that worries the IAEA and the West. Rafael Grossi, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, says that inspections will take place, according to him. This is part of the agreement. The inspectors need to return, inspect the sites, and verify what happens to the uranium stockpile that went missing. Trump says that the American experts will also join the inspection teams when the inspections are carried out. He also threatened that if Iran really did not agree to inspections, the talks will end immediately. But Iran denies it. The spokesman for the Iranian Foreign Ministry says that Iran would not have been without inspections in the sites that were damaged in the strikes.
Susan Collins supported Trump's Medicaid cuts. Healthcare is getting even more expensive. People are losing coverage. But Susan Collins gave Trump a blank check for his war in Iran. Tell Susan Collins to stop siding with Donald Trump.
In Iran, they claim that the renewal of inspections depends on the upcoming negotiations and the results that will be achieved. That is exactly where the gap is. Washington presents an agreement. The IAEA says that the inspections will happen. Iran denies it or buys time. And meanwhile, nuclear material is the question that everyone is afraid to ask out loud. It is still the known sites, or has it already been moved to a different place? The Trump administration is already looking for a special budget for the Iranian issue.
As part of a massive package of about $80 billion for the wall, there is a request for about $672 million from the United States Department of Energy. The goal is to fund operations to remove sensitive nuclear materials from Iran, neutralize technological infrastructure, and expand the nuclear emergency teams, and strengthen the systems for detecting smuggling. That does not sound like an administration that is sure of the problem and makes sure that the problem is over, right? And it sounds like an administration that understands that the war may have stopped for now, but the hunt for nuclear materials has only begun. And inside all of this, Trump is managing another front, which is NATO. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte arrived at the Oval Office with charts, compliments, and an attempt to convince Donald Trump that the allies in Europe did stand by the United States in the war against Iran. He spoke about Trump's trillion and the Trump 47 effect. He praised the American president and said that he did exactly what needed to be done against Iran. Trump did not buy it. When Rutte claimed that the allies were there for America, Trump stopped him and said they were not. After that, he attacked Italy, Britain, Germany, France, and Spain, and said that he does not need European money. He needs loyalty. That sentence is important because from Trump's point of view, the war against Iran has also become a test of the Western alliance. Who gave bases? Who gave backing? Who helped open the wars? Who watched from the sidelines? And who asked the United States to fight, but was not willing to pay a price? And then Trump brought Turkey into the picture. He said that Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was a leading candidate to enter this war, maybe even on the Iranian side, because he is not a big fan of Israel. According to him, he asked Erdogan to stay out, and Erdogan stayed out. That's a sentence that shakes the region. Turkey is a member of NATO. It has a very large army. It is very hostile to Israel diplomatically. And now the President of the United States is saying out loud that he could have entered war on Iran's side. Trump also hinted that he may advance a rule that will make Erdogan very happy, including a positive possibility regarding F-35 jets. For us in Israel, this is no longer a side detail, because if Turkey receives American reinforcement while it continues to attack Israel verbally and support anti-Israeli actions, Jerusalem is going to follow this track very closely. Inside the United States itself, the internal debate does not stop in Congress. But there's also a sharp public debate around anti-Israeli political activity inside certain communities. Extremist sermons and movements that try to influence American foreign policy from within. It's important to say this carefully. Not every Muslim is an extremist. Not every mosque is a center of incitement. But when sharp anti-Israel calls are heard, support for Hamas and the use of political power against Israel, then it becomes part of the pressure on Washington. Iran understands this. It does not act only with missiles, it acts through economics, industry, through Hezbollah, through Hamas, through public opinion, through Gulf states, through Turkey, and through division inside the West. This is exactly the method of the military guards. Not to win in one battle, but to survive, split, hide, come back through another door. Force the opponent to manage and crisis at the same time. Israel sees all of this from the ground. In the north, it sees Hezbollah trying to recover. In the south, it sees Hamas trying to re-enter the game through Iran. It sees Hormuz and the Red Sea becoming pressure areas. In Washington, it sees an agreement being presented as an achievement, but still full of dangerous holes. And before we continue, it's important to say this clearly. Truth about Israel will not reach the world on its own. But if you understand how complex this story is, a suspicious vessel in Iraq, young Iranians being sent to Hezbollah, nuclear factories, enriched uranium, which strengthened Hormuz, Turkey, Kuwait, and the crisis inside Washington.
The officer who came in running and
Help
kicked
us
Timothy in the
spread the
face was none other than Jerry Desidero.
You can like this report, write in the comments, tell me where you're watching from and why it's important to defeat terrorism.
Just before
Okay?
Officer Desidero comes
It's a straightforward question.
We'll come back to it later. The kick knocked out one of Timothy's
Tell
teeth
your
and
family,
left him
your
with
friends, your
lacerations and put him in the
communities
hospital. But perhaps
about
the most
TBN
disturbing
Israel
part of this
YouTube
incident
channel,
isn't just
where
the
we
completely
report
unjustified
twice a
kick.
day
It's
on
what
what's
Officer
happening
Desidero
here.
did right before it.
Look
After
also
being
for
kicked in
your
the face,
info and
Timothy
Mati
was
Shani on
arrested
our
and taken to
social
jail. He
media
got out 2
accounts
weeks later and
because
made a
of boots
legitimate
on the
effort to
ground
report what the officer
between
had done
Israel
to the
from
Monroe
the
Police
field,
Department. He filed an official
from the
complaint
ground,
naming the officer
not
involved,
only
and
from
then
the
he waited
studio.
for
Now,
months. And to
we
no one's
can
surprise, it
understand
went
the
nowhere. The footage of the incident was
Iran
released
may
for
have been
another 4
hit
months.
militarily,
Even then, only
but
part
it
of it
is
was
not
made public.
acting
The
like
roughly 3-minute
someone
body
who
camera
surrendered.
segment that you just watched was the only
It
part
is
of the footage that
recruiting
was ever
manpower
released.
for
But
Hezbollah.
Timothy's attorney said that
It
there
is
were other
bargaining
cameras
over
from that
nuclear
night that the city
inspection.
never turned over. So the
It's
public got
trying
to see
to
the
receive
kick, but
frozen
not
money.
much else.
It
Jamie
is
Mayo
testing
was
how
the
to
city of
charge
Monroe's mayor
future
denied that Officer
payments in
Desidero kicked
Hormuz.
Timothy, and he
It
claimed
is
that he had
pushing
no
the
idea that this
goal
had
to
happened for
open
several
a
weeks. He
separate
also made some
channel
pretty bold
with
statements when
exact
questioned about it by
while
Fox 14
Google is
News.
trying
The
to
incident that started it all. For months,
that the
Timothy
United
Williams said he
States
was
is
beaten
still
while being
in
arrested on
control.
April 21st. He was jailed. They
Trump
released
also
on May 19th, but it
understands
wasn't
that,
until he got out that he tried to report what happened to him to no
That's
avail.
why he creates, he threatens to cancel the negotiations if Iran lies
Jamie
about
Mayo was the mayor at the time of this incident.
That
He
is
said
why
he
he
didn't know anything
demands
about this.
nuclear inspection. That is why he's requesting a special budget to remove sensitive materials. That's why
we've all wanted
he's
answers. How
angry
could
with
this incident
Dayton.
go by without
That is
anyone
why
knowing anything?
Graham Plattner blamed women for getting raped. Who says something like that? Plattner said women should take some responsibility for themselves and not get so effed up they wind up having sex with someone they don't need to. What's wrong with this guy?
Plattner said to avoid rape, women should act like an adult for F's sake. He's an awful person.
Graham Plattner is dangerous. I would never vote for Graham Plattner. Pine Tree Results PAC is responsible for the content of its advertising.
Stepped in and charged Desidero with second-degree battery and malfeasance in office. But Timothy's attorneys and the local NAACP chapter were already calling for an administrative record.
The Baltimore Parish Monroe chapter of the NAACP says they want all of the officers involved in the excessive force case involving Timothy Williams to be arrested.
Stop the kids being Monroe back.
Broadcast revealed that one of the game days past the road. Store game day deals for a limited time on
talks about loyalty.
We're looking for a house closer to
But the
everything,
Middle East
but we don't know
does
where to
not wait
start.
for
Find it with
stitches.
Realtor.com.
Hezbollah
With
is
Realtor
already
View,
trying
it's
to
easy to
rebuild.
find a home closer to
God is
what's
already
ever close to
recruiting.
your heart.
Gulf is already
Realtor
building its own track. Turkey is already receiving an embrace from Trump. And the IAEA still has not received a full answer to the simplest question, where is the nuclear material? If the agreement with Iran was meant to bring stability, the coming days will show whether it truly stops the Iranian access or only gives it time to reorganize. Does the West understand that it is not negotiating only over documents, but over the question of who will dictate the rules of the game after this war?
The body says,
who will dictate it? Let me know in the comments. In the meantime, bring the truth, follow us, and hit the subscribe button on TBN Israel YouTube channel. I don't say this a million times for nothing. We need your help. We need you to hit it. That's how you tell the algorithm of YouTube that this is a content that's worth watching. So help us out. And the best thing you can do is pray for the situation, pray for the soldiers that are fighting Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon, pray for the Iranian people that are under the oppression of the revolutionary guards in Iran. They don't need food or money. They need not to be ruled by a terrorist organization, by a radical organization that is investing its money in arms, ballistic missiles, and terror proxy.
We first reported back in 2018
Instead of
Officer Desidero was
infrastructure,
fired from the force after
education,
testing positive for THC. He was
and
ultimately
stuff
reinstated by the Civil Service Board. Timothy Williams lawyers want to
So,
ensure that doesn't happen
pray for
again.
them,
Officers are
pray for the
protected through
people
the
of
Civil Service
Lebanon,
Board.
and for the
And
government
if
of
they
Lebanon
had
to take
taken
back
this
their
seriously,
sovereignty over
that
the
perhaps
country
Desidero would not have
away
been an officer
from
at the time when this
Iran,
incident occurred.
which is basically colonizing Lebanon with a terrorist organization called
They say more
Hezbollah.
people have come forward with
Okay,
similar
lots of stuff
issues,
to
and they
pray
believe
for.
now
I
is
would
the time to
appreciate if
speak
you
out
also
about
pray for our team. They're working day and night
But it wasn't
to
long
provide
before the
these
feds got involved.
reports.
And although the state probably had a
Pray
strong
for their
case, it was
families,
ultimately the federal
for
investigation
them,
that took center
and
stage.
for the
And in
peace
October of
of Jerusalem.
2021, things weren't looking good for Officer
Charges by the United States Attorney for the use of excessive force against a man named Timothy Williams back in 2020. Body-cam footage of the arrest was released to the public earlier this year. According to the indictment, the Sailor kicked Williams in the face and in the head. The indictment
Agreement
also
with the
alleges
United
the Sailor
States
attempted to cover up his
must
misconduct
also
by
include
misleading
restraining
citizens.
Israel against Hezbollah.
It turns out
But
that
this
Desert
is
had
where
told
the
the
danger
supervisor
lies
to
for us in
leave
Israel.
from the fall,
If
leading
Hezbollah
to
remains
cover
with
up what
drones,
they had.
rockets,
That's what the
and
indictment
one
accused him of.
commando
The cover-up was one of the
infrastructure
president's had brought
and
into it.
tunnels
It was
in
never
southern
one that
Lebanon.
actually had
And at the
answered.
same
When he did his
time,
deal in 2020,
Iran
he
receives
did
economic
take into account
oxygen.
deprivation of
And
rights,
this
and the cover-up count
is
was
not a
strong.
pause
So
in
he is
this
the only
war.
part that he officially
This is
admitted
a
to, and the
pause
whole
that
false
allows
flag has
the
remained
axis of
untouched.
evil
But
to
pleading guilty to that
reorganize,
kick came with a catch. To take the
bring
deal,
in
the Desert had to
weapons,
sign his name to a sworn
find
statement
more
of exactly
money,
what he did
and
in
buy
that
more
program.
time.
And that is where the
And that is why
mysterious
Israel
info
is
from
looking
fellow
at
officers
this
took on a whole
agreement
new
with
meaning.
extreme caution, because a good agreement needs to take capabilities away from Iran. A bad agreement only gives them breathing room again. And it turns out that Iran
Needless to say,
secretly
someone who loses
bought
control of the moment
technology
doesn't ask
to
amidst
Abu
threat where the
Dhabi
cameras are rolling.
and
Desert
used
asked
it
if he
to
was
attack.
recording, got told no, and
Quds
never
Force
even broke his stride
personnel
the way it kicked him in
managed
the
to
face. That's
purchase
about as premeditated as
Chinese
it gets.
hardware
And
for
none of that is just my
military use
opinion of the video.
for a
Desert
shell
Air
company
admitted all that himself.
based in
In
Dubai.
fact, in a statement on
Tehran
his
used the
sentencing,
technology
Christopher
that it
Wray, the Justice
purchased
civil
in
rights
order
defender,
to
said
bomb the
Desert Air
United
assaulted
Arab
him and he
Emirates,
thought he wasn't being
the
watched. And she
Revolutionary
said the
Guard
sentence, quote, makes
job
clear that the
opening
Department of
track,
Justice will
which
aggressively
is an
investigate and
Iranian
prosecute any
espionage
officer who
network,
believes that the
has been
Constitution only
exposed.
applies when the cameras are on.
Cyber
Exactly what
giant
happened.
Palo Alto Networks reveals how the enemy's elite unit managed to penetrate leading security, aviation, and communications companies in Israel, United States, and the United Arab Emirates to fake job ads, Zoom meetings, and sophisticated technology that causes the computer to neutralize its own defenses. The Iranians ran an unprecedented espionage operation, but in order to understand why Israel is so worried, we need to look at the war itself, not only at the negotiating table. In Lebanon, a ceasefire looks more and more like a nice name for a slow war. Just in the last 24 hours, an IDF soldier was terminated in southern Lebanon by a Hezbollah explosive drone strike, and another soldier was seriously wounded. This happened in the Binj Jbel area, exactly in the space where Hezbollah is trying to prove that it is still capable of striking the IDF forces, even after months of attacks, eliminations, and severe damage to its infrastructure. The IDF for its part continues to strike in southern Lebanon and in the Bekaa Valley and issues evacuation warnings to the communities, the villages in southern Lebanon where Hezbollah is trying to restore its infrastructure. They hide weapons, they bring back firing and attack capabilities. And in other words, even if there are diplomatic contacts, there is no quiet on the ground. Hezbollah is not disarming, not truly withdrawing, and not stopping its efforts to rebuild the line of threat against the north. This is exactly the Israeli fear, that Iran will use the agreement to save Hezbollah as well. Not only the nuclear program, not only the money, also its most important arm on Israel's border. And in Gaza, the story is different. But there too, the war is not really over. The IDF continues to operate against immediate Hamas threats. And in the last 24 hours, there were reports of destruction of weapons warehouses in the central Gaza Strip area. Inside the warehouses were anti-tank missiles, RPGs, weapons, vests, and combat equipment, exactly the weaponry that Hamas is trying to preserve for the day after, for the moment when it can once again attack the IDF forces or Israeli communities. And at the same time, Israel is deepening its security hold along the yellow line inside Gaza, and is trying to prevent Hamas from rebuilding military capabilities right under everyone's nose. In other words, in Gaza too, there may be fewer headlines, but there is still a war over weapons, warehouses, over tunnels, over areas of control, and over the question of whether Hamas has truly been weakened or is only waiting for the next opportunity. So when Iran demands money, guarantees, and a ceasefire whole front is that asks one simple question: who is dismantling whose weapons? Because if Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas remain armed, then the agreement does not end this war. It only changes the case.
Ocean State Job Lot. Everything you need and everything you didn't know you needed.
So I'm Il Pinto. With me is Mati Shoshani, and we are Boots on the Ground. We bring you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel in this war against the Revolutionary Guards in Iran, which is the head of the crumbling axis of evil in the Middle East. And a second before we begin, I want to call on you to keep spreading the truth.
Finding solutions, keeping the grid stable. We don't generate the power, but we do everything it takes to safely deliver it to you. This work takes training, so we teach the next generation. Reliability is improved, and we're working to keep that momentum going. We're here for May.
I'm pleased to bring you another video interview from Dr. Michael Cohen, who shares more of his insights into promotion of health and treatment of disease, new ideas in medicine that can benefit us all, often at lower cost than might be expected. Over to the interview now. Do check out Dr. Cohen's own YouTube channel, The Accidental Doctor, for more content of this nature. Hey, warm welcome to this talk, and Dr. Michael Cohen has come back. Dr. Cohen, thank you so much for returning.
I love seeing
Today's topic is really interesting and important, metabolism and cancer, but just before we start, it's just a pity there's only one of you, because we get so many letters and emails and comments saying, I wish Dr. Cohen could be my GP, but unfortunately you're the only one. So, but we've got you on video, which is the next best thing. So it's fantastic. Now, I am Dr. Cohen and myself have not prepared this deliberately. Well, he's prepared this. He's got a lifetime's experience. But I know it's about metabolism and cancer, but I don't know the details. So I'll kind of learn with you as we go along. And this is not pretend. I am genuinely learning it. So although I've been working with cancer patients obviously since my youth, I don't actually know much about this new thinking of metabolism and cancer, so really looking forward to this. Should we start with maybe a bit of prevention, Michael? I mean, everyone wants to prevent cancer. Everyone's been touched by cancer. Everyone's keen to avoid cancer. In terms of metabolic health and cancer, what are the links, and how can I reduce my risks, maybe at different times of life?
I'm not going to go into different times of life at the moment, but let's say if I was to try to reduce my risks of cancer, there's a number of things which might seem obvious, but there's actually a large evidence base for. One of the most important things, apart we can sort of divide it up. You've got things like insulin resistance. Yep. So making sure that you are actually, that your body is functioning the best way from a glucose metabolism point of view. And that means basically a number of things, but it means staying active, it means keeping your muscles active. Muscles are a very, very important metabolic organ in the body. So it's not enough to just say, go for a walk. Walking is great, but people should be actually engaging in physical resistance training, so actually building muscle. And I'm not talking about becoming Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm talking about keeping your muscles active by doing press-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, squats, and you don't have to necessarily go to the gym to do this, but just keeping your muscles well-toned, let's say. So that's really important, and that is very important for insulin resistance. In addition, the kind of food that we eat, so you don't want to be avoiding ultra processed foods and high carbohydrate foods, very refined. You want to be having as much as possible natural foods, or sort of foods in their natural state, and that you cook or prepare at home, rather than eating processed foods that often have a number of other preservatives, chemicals, whatnot, aside from the fact that there can be, let's say, environmental toxins within a lot of things that we eat, or the way they're produced and the way they're preserved. There are actual just benefits in keeping the food as clean as possible. And that doesn't mean avoiding all carbohydrates. It means eating healthy carbohydrates that are released into our body in a good way, that they're digested slowly.
Whole grains.
So whole grains are also defined. There's a whole thing about grains being unhealthy. There are some people that that's a problem for, but I think it's really more about, like everything in life, it's about having the right quantity and quality of something. So don't exaggerate. The other thing that's incredibly important in terms of nutrition is fiber. Now, fiber is very important because it causes the slowing down of digestion. So it actually allows the gut to process food in a healthier way, and it avoids as much as possible glucose going too high too quickly and then crashing down. We know that in itself is a pro-inflammatory state, so you want to try and avoid that. So by having good fibre in the diet, then you want to have things like resistant starch. You want to be having things, it's good to even add a little bit of like psyllium husk, or if that's the kind of thing you like. But the point being that you want your food to be digested slowly, and that there are certain fibres that actually improve the gut microbiome activity as well. And that's without getting into too many details at the moment. So that's we've touched on sugar, we've touched on fibre. You want to avoid things like processed meats. You want to have, if you're going to have meat, be having meat. It's fine, but it shouldn't be all the time every day. It should be maybe a couple of times a week. And you don't want to be having processed meats. You want to have actually sort of fresh meat, as it were, cooked. This is some of the side of prevention. There are other aspects to it, like everything, and you can generalize a lot of things that can actually improve our resilience and health in a number of ways. So obviously good sleep, regular exercise, and I'll even go as far as saying good relationships, because that's actually also very important for our immune system, which is important in the development of cancers in the first place. So I think that's, without going into too much detail, that's the kind of prevention. Now, if you'll allow me, I'll tell you about a couple of cases which are really interesting, one of whom I saw, this was a few years ago, and I'm going to obviously obscure any identifying details. This was a gentleman, let's say in his late 50s, who came because he'd had a health screen, and they found that his PSA, his prostate-specific antigen, which is a potential marker for cancer in the prostate gland, was actually high on a routine checkup, and he came from abroad, and he was working locally when I first saw him, and he'd come with this result, and I confirmed the result, it was high, and did some further tests and found out that he actually did have a cancer of the prostate. And he actually had, on one side he had a couple of tumours, on the other side he had a few tumours. So the prostate gland has got two lobes, it's got a split down the middle, and he actually had quite a few different tumours, let's say, in the prostate, and it was confined to the prostate. It was considered a moderate risk. So it was not a highly invasive cancer, but it was potentially invasive, and it had been caught at a reasonable stage when it still seemed to be confined to the prostate gland. So he'd had a PET scan, it was checked, there wasn't any other sign of this elsewhere in the body. And I sent him to a specialist, a urologist, who they did a specific type of MRI, it's called a fusion MRI, and they took a biopsy, and they decided at the time, in conjunction with him, in collaboration with with him to only treat the 2 tumours on one side of the prostate. And for the others, because they seemed a bit smaller, they said let's leave it for now. And the way they treated them was with a local treatment called cryotherapy. Now, cryotherapy means putting in a needle into the actual into the tumours under an MRI guidance, and then actually freezing the tumours. So he had this done, and before he even had this done, after I got the initial result, I said to him, I said, look, there's a few other things with you that we really need to address here. He was overweight. He was not living, let's say, the healthiest lifestyle. He wasn't eating the healthiest food. He wasn't doing exercise. He had a very busy job. And I said to him, I said, whatever comes out of the side of the cancer diagnosis and the treatment, these are things that you need to optimize to improve your general health and to improve your chances of getting through this cancer in the best possible way, including the treatment. And so we put him on a specific, again, he was very good, you have to work with someone who's going to work with you. Not everyone will do this. But he started doing exercise, he started sleeping better, he started losing weight, he adjusted his diet completely. I told him to take a particular supplement that's actually got a large base of evidence for prostate cancer in particular, which is called lycopene, and it's you find that in tomatoes. He started doing all of those things, and he actually lost a good 7 or 8 kilos. He became a lot fitter. He felt better, his glucose came down, his insulin also came down with it. So these are all the things that I was talking about before. Now, the really interesting thing about this chap was that after we did all this, and he had the cryoablation, so putting the needles in and freezing the tumours, the next step was a few months later was to repeat the MRI to see what the situation was with everything. Now, his PSA, the marker of the cancer, had come down dramatically. What was really amazing was that when we did the MRI, the tumours, the 2 tumours that were treated on one side of the prostate, they were gone. Now, that was a good result, but it was also an expected result. What was completely unexpected was on the other side, all the other tumours had disappeared completely.
There was no question about the initial diagnosis. There were definitely targetable lesions.
It was a definite prostate cancer. And there's actually a name to this effect, and it's called the abscopal effect. And I believe it was discovered by a British scientist in the 1950s. Now, there's about, as far as I know from the literature, less than 50 cases worldwide documented of such a thing happening. Now, what's the relevance to what we're talking about here? I can't say for sure that I'll tell you about what's called the abscopal effect in a moment, but the question is also, what did the metabolic changes that we put this chap through, did they have a contribution to this? So the abscopal effect is something incredibly rare, but it is documented going back at least sort of 70, 80 years, whereby you treat a tumour in one place and without treating it elsewhere, so you didn't have any chemotherapy, radiotherapy or whatnot, the other tumours disappeared. So the theory behind it is that basically by treating the tumour in one place, you're exposing the tumour antigens, the parts that the immune system can see, and it becomes like a danger signal. It's kind of like, okay, now I've been exposed, you can recognise me, this is the kind of cancer that I am. And in some people, in certain situations, the immune system takes that almost like a vaccine and then starts attacking other parts of the tumour elsewhere. And that's probably, that is what seems to have happened. Then the other question comes out, in view of the fact that this is something so rare, this particular the abscopal effect, was the metabolic part of the treatment also something that increased the chances of that happening? Now, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do, and it's very, very difficult to prove it. But I do think that it's very likely, in him specifically, with all the other things that were done, they created, let's say, the optimal milieu, the optimum environment conditions, surrounding conditions for this particular thing to happen. And so he was, as I said, treated on one side, and the other side disappeared. that's one case, and I'll tell you about another case now. This is not someone who I know personally, but I've seen a lot of patients over the years whom specific types of metabolic optimization actually resulted in an improvement in their cancer. I'll tell you a couple of things. One, if anyone on your channel wants to read, there's a doctor who now passed away, unfortunately, but he had a brain tumor. I think it was a glioblastoma, I'm not sure. And he was told basically he's got something like a year to live. His name was David Servan-Schreiber. He wrote a book called Anti-Cancer, which I would recommend anyone to read. And he basically didn't want to accept this. And he himself was a medical doctor. And he decided to do everything possible within reason to treat the cancer beyond what was the cancer itself. So, in other words, optimized his own metabolic health. Now, how did he do it? He basically did it mainly with food, he did it with sleep, he did it with exercise, he did it with meditation, positive relationships and things like this. And he survived 20 years. Well, in someone who was told that you've got a year, maybe 2 years to live, it's a really remarkable story.
I mean, we've seen patients with glioblastoma die in months or certainly a year or something.
Usually a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years, you know. And I think it was a glioblastoma, but the point was that the prognostication for him was that it was going to be, you know, very, very short, and he wasn't going to survive long. And now I'm going to tell you another story. This one is more of a case. This was in one of the southern states in America. These things have been interesting me for years, and I've spoken to other doctors who've experienced these kind of results, let's say. Now pancreatic cancer, for example. Pancreatic cancer is known to be absolutely horrific. Most people with it without treatment, will die within months. And even with treatment, something like 95% of people who receive treatment will actually die quicker with the treatment than if they just leave the cancer alone. And the reason being that it's such a high-risk, aggressive problem that their chances are so small that people are willing to take the risk, and they take the risk. They get treated with chemotherapy, and about 5% of them will have a good result, meaning they might last a few more years. But 95% of people will actually die sooner than had you left the cancer alone. Maybe not by much, but it won't exactly help. It will harm. So this is an example of where we say first do no harm, but when you're doing it in the context of trying to give someone a chance of actually living longer, if someone is willing to take that risk, then that's the usual outcome. So there's a doctor in the United States who had a few cases of people, not just with pancreatic cancer, also with liver tumors and lymphomas, I believe, and he treated them with something that I've spoken about with you in the past. I think alpha-lipoic acid, low-dose naltrexone, and vitamin C, depending on the type of tumor. And there's a very sound biological reasoning to this. So tumors cancerous tumors usually have they go to a more anaerobic type of metabolism. So a metabolism that doesn't that needs less oxygen. And what taking our alpha-lipoic acid does is it pushes their metabolism towards a more what's called oxidative phosphorylation. So it moves them away from anaerobic and more towards aerobic metabolism. And then taking something like LDN, low-dose naltrexone, that causes the body to produce its own endogenous, its own internal opioids, so basically heroin inside your own body, or morphine, whichever way you want to look at it, and that has certain effects on the tumor environment, and it can actually then cause apoptosis, so it can cause cell death to those tumors. So he has, for example, a case that I read about where, and I've spoken with him in person more than once, where he had a patient with pancreatic cancer who was alive and well, something like about 6.5 years after the treatment, after the diagnosis, and this person did not receive any chemotherapy or radiotherapy or surgery. And he did it basically using these things. Now, these are using metabolic medicine to treat a cancer. Now, the usual reason, the whole way in which medicine and oncology is thought of cancer is being through the somatic mutation. So you've got a cell, something goes wrong in its DNA replication, a mutation happens, and for various reasons that proceeds, and you've got a tumor, and then it metastasizes, it can go off to different parts of the body, etc. Now that is a very real thing, and it's proven by multiple studies over many years now, and that's been the main thesis, let's say, for how to approach cancer. But that's looking at the actual tumor. The problem with that is that there's probably more to the story, and there is more to the story, but it depends on each tumor and what the actual environment that the tumor is in. So we know that some cancers are more sensitive to metabolic changes than others. So we're talking now about, we've past prevention, we're in the realms of treatment, obviously. Breast cancer, colorectal cancer, so the large colon and the rectum, pancreatic cancer, and I think also prostate cancer. These cancers are known to be more sensitive to metabolic manipulations, let's say. So there are things that you can do that can actually push these cancers into a more dormant state. Now that could mean, in some cases, actually completely regressing the cancer, but more likely it could mean just making the cancer more indolent, so it's not as aggressive, it might be more amenable to treatment, it might, you have other options to you. And I think that the focus in medicine is, it's obviously correct that you need to attack the tumor, but there are other things that we don't really look at because these things, it's not easy to, first of all, it's a paradigm shift in the way we think about cancers, and on the other hand, it's also something that it's very hard to get the economics of a trial going. Okay, so, when you've got things that are very, very cheap, the only way to, I guess, to bring them into a trial is to start adding them into something else that you're already doing, which makes the trial a little bit less pure. But I think that may be the way forward, that we can actually start bringing in other metabolic changes at the same time as using the regular treatments, let's say. And I think that there is some movement in that direction now in medicine. There are other types of cancers, such as acute myeloid leukemia, and I think lymphomas as well, which are cancers of the blood system, of the bone marrow, of the production of blood cells. And there is some evidence in some cases that, for example, high-dose vitamin C, given usually intravenously, can actually, vitamin C works slightly differently. It causes the body to become more pro-oxidant, meaning that it's causing the production of more reactive oxygen species, which in turn results in the other cells in the immune system basically responding and attacking that cancer in specific cases. And these are the range of subjects that we're talking about. And there's more as well. I can't go into every detail, obviously. The point being that you have to look at cancer not just in isolation as, one might think, I've got cancer, there's a cancerous tumor inside me. You have to start thinking, hold on a second, what else can I do in addition to whatever else may or may not be right, or whether I want to do other treatments that can actually optimize the chances of this tumor regressing or being in a better state for treatment. I think I'll let you talk a little bit.
No, that's fantastic, Michael. I think this is part of the problem. People know about all these, well, not alternative, but additional treatments really to treating cancer, but they're not quite sure which is which. I mean, it strikes me there that breast, colon, pancreas and prostatic are all glandular type tumours or adenomas. So maybe that's a classification, whereas the acute myeloid leukemia and the lymphoma are more sort of bone marrow related. And most doctors simply don't know the optimised strategy in terms of these additional treatments, which can be transformative. for particular cancers. We really need this to be documented, and even though it's not for sure, it'd be really nice, wouldn't it, to have some sort of algorithm that suggests particular alternative treatments for particular cancer types.
Yeah, I think it's possible to develop a safe algorithm anyway, because you're talking about low risk treatments. Very much so. I think it needs to be realistic in terms of what the expectations are. There's a researcher called Dr. or Professor Thomas Seyfried in Boston University in America, and for at least 20 years now he's been doing really remarkable work on the mechanisms, and they have done trials with glioblastoma actually, tumour, but I don't think you can generalise it to all cancers. The problem is that tumours are not necessarily made of one cell type that is more oxidative phosphorylation or anaerobic. So the problem is that you can't just say, okay, I'm going to do this treatment, this metabolic treatment, and you may have some anecdotes where some people do really, really well, but there'll be others that they won't do so well, and that's simply because you've got different types of metabolism happening within the same tumour. And there may be some tumours that are more prone to having one type of metabolism, but then when the tumour starts metastasizing, when there are when it starts coming, let's say, out of its original position and moving to other parts of the body, the metastases themselves can also have different types of metabolism. Dr. Seyfried talks very much about ketogenic therapy. So by reducing, so here we were talking before about insulin resistance and glucose, and eating the right types of diet for prevention. So in terms of treatment, ketosis, which is when a person basically almost completely stops eating sugar, glucose, carbohydrates, and they literally run their body on protein and fats, then the body goes into a different type of metabolism, which is ketosis. So you start producing ketone bodies, and ketone bodies can also be very advantageous in dealing with many types of cancers, because the cancer is being basically starved of glucose, if you want to look at it that way. It's not getting glucose, and it doesn't necessarily run so well on ketones. But again, it's a nuanced subject. There are tumours that will run with the ketones. It's not a straightforward thing. And there are other cancers that also run on glutamine, and glutamine, so Dr. Seyfried basically said, well, we can start using a drug called, which blocks glutamine, and that theory can also, that can work in practice, but there can be significant side effects of those treatments as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's a nuanced subject, but what I would like to I think that a very, very important message of all of this is that people need to understand that they're not passive in all of this. It's not just, I've got a diagnosis of cancer and there's nothing I can do. First of all, there are definitely plenty of things you can do to prevent yourself getting cancer. Something like 1 in 3 people will get cancer at some stage in their life, if not more than that. And many of those cancers, by the way, for example, prostate cancer, if you live long enough, all men will have prostate cancer.
Inevitable, yeah.
They just don't know that they've got it because they've got no symptoms, and it never causes any problems. It just happens when they're 95 years old or something, or 80 years old, but they just, they may even have a tumour and we won't treat it, we'll just keep an eye on it and see what's going on with it. The point being that we all have propensity towards cancer to different degrees, and we may all have tumours that are growing within us and then our body's immune system deals with all the time. So the empowering part of this is, how do we get people to improve, to optimize their own, let's call it the soil in the garden, so that they can actually combat cancers in their early stages or at later stages if they actually develop into tumours. And but there are things that can be done that are not too medical, let's say. They don't involve expensive drugs, they don't involve expensive treatments with high risks, but it is something that it's a developing field, and I really think that it's obviously a very important part of the future for cancer prevention and treatment.
I mean, it seems with traditional treatments like chemotherapy and cytotoxic agents, we're prepared to accept absolutely appalling levels of side effects effects. You know, the idea that things are safe. I mean, cytotoxics certainly aren't safe. I mean, obviously you've got to do what your consultant prescribes, but I mean, you know, people die on chemotherapeutic agents without being too alarmist about it, and the side effects are totally appalling. And yet when we talk about these alternative things like low-dose naltrexone and vitamin C, they're remarkably safe treatments. And yet in the medical establishment there seems to be this great resistance to it. It's, you know, people kind of say, well, where's the randomised double-blind controlled trials on that? Well, the randomised double-blind controlled trials on these often highly toxic treatments that are done by very expensive clinical trials run by very swish pharmaceutical companies who are starting to make a lot of money. And the other thing the pharmaceutical industry does, they tend to get a treatment that's fit for one cancer. So you know, there's probably a couple hundred, I don't know what the official figure is, a couple of hundred different types of cancer. So you want a treatment for cancer A, a treatment for cancer B, a treatment for cancer C, a treatment for cancer D. Whereas these things basically, you know, we think of things like Professor Dalgleish, who's basically developed a bacterial inoculation that upgrades the entire T-cell response.
Professor Dalgleish actually, I mean, I followed him for a while. I think I was in touch with him a long time ago as well. He used low-dose naltrexone.
Very much so. He's written several papers on it. And low-dose naltrexone, even with conventional chemotherapy, can actually half the required dose. And if you half the required dose, you get nearly all the side effects.
This is exactly the point. Even vitamin C, I've got a patient at the moment with melanoma that has spread into bones in one of their arms, and is receiving a biological, I think is receiving an immunotherapy. So receiving a standard, though very advanced treatment for it. And in discussions with her oncology team, I've been giving her intravenous vitamin C. Wow. And that it doesn't make everything better, but it's made her much more resilient to the treatment. She's much more able to cope with the treatment, not having fatigue, able to cope, not having side effects so much of the treatment. So it's not an all or nothing thing. It's not that at the moment we know that if you just get vitamin C, everything's going to be wonderful. Not at all, but it's very much about starting to think a little bit more rather than just saying, okay, this is what it is. In response to what you said about different all these different agents, whether it be chemotherapy, now there's biological therapies, there's CAR T, there's all sorts of stuff that's going to be happening more and more in the future. But in response to what you're saying, I think first of all, as a paradigm shift, right? You know, medicine. It's just a little bit shocking when you come through medical school, and it's very hard to go through medical school for years, and you learn certain things, and these become the foundational understanding of any particular branch within medicine. And then someone comes along and says, well, actually, vitamin C could work. And it almost sounds ridiculous. Okay, even to doctors, maybe especially to doctors, because there is a certain cognitive bias that you develop, because you think, that can't be right. It's just like, no, it can't be right. And nobody's looking at the very, very basic biology. And I can give you loads of examples of this, and not just on the side of cancer. Hopefully we'll talk about it in future changes. But I think that's the first step, and then there's the other barriers to doing this, which is how do you arrange for these trials to take place, and even convincing patients. I can tell you, I've got patients who I've tried to say, listen, you should be thinking about this and that, not necessarily related to cancer, and even though they know that, we've got a long-term working relationship together, they trust me and everything, and they can be resistant to trying things that nobody really knows for sure, even though they're very, very safe options. Something like low-dose naltrexone, vitamin C, whatever it is, alpha-lipoic acid. So the system's not entirely there yet. But I do think that with time these things will become more and more prominent.
And I think things that aren't going to do any harm, it's all about risk-benefit analysis to me. If something's not going to do any harm, then why the heck not try it?
Sure, I think, but even on the subject of harm, to give the other side of the equation, equation, there will be those who say, well, we actually don't know if this is safe. We actually, because it could be, there are certain cases where they think, for example, vitamin C could push a tumor to becoming more aggressive. So the question, and so they're only now starting to understand the mechanisms by which these additional therapies can actually help or potentially harm. And there are specific mutations, for example, in colon cancer, whereby they know that if you've got this specific mutation, vitamin C will actually likely help. But this is
help the condition or help the cancer.
Help the condition.
Be therapeutic. Yes. Fascinating. I mean, I don't think our pharmacy even stocks intravenous vitamin C. We have like a combination of vitamin C and vitamin B that we give to alcoholics and people with vernix and things like that.
Right. Well, usually it's made up in compound pharmacy. So I use a pharmacy where I am in contact with them. I say, listen, I need you to make up
IV vitamin C,
or IV vitamin C, or there are other IVs that you can put together.
And it probably kills virus. It's probably one of the best treatments for sepsis that's not used as well.
Well,
it probably kills most viruses.
It has,
and most bacteria.
It definitely has antibacterial, antiviral properties. There was a trial done in an intensive care unit a few years back, maybe about 5 years ago, but they didn't at the end of the day find a great benefit. If I think that, but I'm not sure about the details.
That is correct. Pierre Corey actually covers that in his book on the war on ivermectin. And Pierre Corey and what's that brilliant South African doctor called who works in the States? His name escapes me. But they wrote a paper and they got very, according to Pierre's book, they got very positive results. But the shall we say the results that appeared in the paper weren't exactly the same as the results they got by the bedside.
Very possible. Very possible.
Well, you might expect that because vitamin C is cheap.
It is cheap, and what are you going to do? It can actually help a lot of people. I think that the research will more and more emerge though, because I think people are more and more open to thinking in this way.
And for treating sepsis, sepsis still has a very high. Well, all infections, of course, as antibiotics become probably more problematic.
We're definitely looking for certain. We're going to be looking for the other things.
If you could get an infection and the GP could give you an injection of intravenous vitamin C and it goes away, that would be desirable if that's the case.
For sure.
At the moment, I simply don't know. Curious, how much do you give? Do you remember?
For what? For intravenous vitamin C? Well, it's a bit of it's a nuanced subject. First of all, you need to make sure that the person doesn't have something called G6PD deficiency.
Yes.
If they do, then you have to be very careful with giving vitamin C. It's not that it's that common, but there are certain populations which have it. And
it's often Mediterranean associated.
It is, yes.
Glucose 6-phosphate,
You just need to be careful about that. Assuming they don't have that deficiency, then you may start them on a dose of something like 20 grams, which sounds like a lot, but when you're giving it as an intravenous infusion, it's not that much. And you can go as high as sort of 70, 75 grams.
Wow!
And even 2 or 3 times a week. Again, it's done carefully.
Do you run it in as an infusion over an hour or something?
You run it in as an infusion, yes, usually over about an hour. It can be done quicker, it can be done a bit slower. And it's very important that people eat something during that time. It has a tendency to drop their sugar levels a bit. Let me tell you another little story. It's an amazing story and also a bit of a tragic story. I won't go into too many of the details because they, this video will get flagged as something else. But I can tell you about a patient who I saw when I actually went to visit a clinic in South Africa about 5 years ago. And I was sitting with the doctor, and he was using. There was a patient. She was in her 60s. She had metastatic breast cancer, so breast cancer that had spread into her bones, into her liver, and even into her gut, which is really, really rare. But the point about the gut was that because of that, she was actually barely able to eat. And she'd had everything. She'd had her mastectomy, she'd had both breasts removed through surgery, she'd had radiotherapy, she'd had chemotherapy, and they just weren't getting on top of this tumour, and eventually they came to, and she couldn't eat, so they left a line in her chest here, which was basically a port that goes into the central veins, so they could easily give her intravenous fluids or medications or whatever. And at that point they said to her, look, this is not working and there's nothing else we can do for you, and we're just going to give you painkillers, morphine, and you need to go and get your affairs in order and say goodbye to your family. And she went to see this doctor who was actually a GP, and he gave her intravenous vitamin C. And something else that I'm not going to go into, nothing dangerous, but he gave her intravenous vitamin C 3 times a week. And it's not just vitamin C, so it's very important I emphasize that. Otherwise people will start thinking that they can do this. And the remark...
You're not going to give us a clue to the other one at all?
I shouldn't, because it will be flagged. It will be, and it's in my opinion, it's not something dangerous, but it needs to be done carefully and properly. And most people don't do these kinds of things. It's not arsenic poisoning or anything like that. And this woman's cancer started regressing, and she was able to eat again, and she was in less pain, and there was a significant regression of her cancer, and she didn't survive. She lived, I think, another at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. But she was supposed to, according to the rate that she was deteriorating, she couldn't eat. She was
talking days.
Not days, but definitely weeks, maybe 2 months, 3 months or so. And she went on for another year and a half or so. And the sad thing is, you wonder what would have happened had this been instituted much earlier, with or without the other treatments. And so this again, it's a case of, I can tell you, I've got long lists of patients that I'm aware of, people who I've seen, people who I've spoken to, other doctors around the world, where different, a little bit of thinking outside of the usual has made a significant difference to their cancer survival.
It's interesting, you're talking there about low-dose naltrexone increasing morphine metabolism. There's this old saying in healthcare that sometimes when we start patients on terminal morphine, they thrive on it. And they just seem to, I've always kind of assumed it was because we've got rid of the pain, so they go back to start cooking again and start doing the shopping again and go to the grandkids.
I'm sure it's more than that, you're right.
Yeah, there could actually be some therapeutic effect of
I mean, with low-dose naltrexone, the mechanism is slightly different because you're purposefully giving them, yes, I mean, obviously, no, I get what you're saying. I'll stop it there. I think there is something to what you're saying, because low-dose naltrexone just basically causes your body to produce morphine of its own.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
That's what it was used. It was originally used for heroin addiction, of course. That's
correct.
The use for
and then it was then somebody very smart in the 1980s when the AIDS epidemic started in New York. A doctor called Bernard Bahari started playing with it because he'd already used it in very low doses for other conditions, and he started playing with it. And when they only had one drug at the time for AIDS, and that was AZT. And he started adding it into people's therapy, gave tiny doses of naltrexone. And at the time, I don't know how long this follow-up went on, but these people many of them were surviving much, much longer than anyone expected because they didn't have any real treatment. And that's how it started. And since then, it developed.
And again, low-dose naltrexone basically isn't available from British pharmacists. It's preposterous. Professor Dalgleish has got a particular pharmacist up in Edinburgh or Glasgow, I think.
Yeah, I remember it was in Scotland.
It was Edinburgh or Glasgow. And, he has to have it made up specially by this particular pharmacist and then shipped to his patients. It's just
You know, for something that's so safe. And apart from if it's safe, why not try it? You've got the whole right to try things. You know, if someone's got a terminal condition and they want to try, I don't know, Artemisia annua or something, you know, from Italy, then I'm actually growing some here. I mean, this plant won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for treating malaria, you know, so,
yes.
You know, but, you know, why shouldn't they be allowed to try it, or other repurposed drugs that, as you say, could be mentioned? I'm reminded of the story of Daniel, who refused to eat the king's food and ate simple foods, and at the end of the trial period were more healthy looking than all the other young men who'd eaten the king's rich food and the king's wine. Of course, we don't want to drink too much of that stuff either. Big question left in my mind, Michael. Vitamin D as a preventative and a treatment.
So I wouldn't. Let's put it this way: I wouldn't put lots and lots of weight on telling people, hey, you know, if you do this, you're not going to get cancer or something like that, or it's going to dramatically reduce. But I think there is a significant body of evidence that having good levels of vitamin D always throughout your life is important, and it definitely seems to improve cancer rates in certain cancers. I can't remember the literature right now, so I'm not going to sit here, but I've definitely read about it, and has improved survivability as well.
In prostate cancer is an obvious example.
And that's one of the things that I gave this chap as well, to get his levels up to a much higher level than they were.
And again, things that are good for prostate cancer, given there's a glandular type thing, you know, again you think breast, colon, pancreas, or glandular type.
Yes.
Type tumours, what we call potential adenomas. So, it kind of makes sense.
Well, as you say, it's very much about benefit versus, risk versus benefit. And I think these are low-risk strategies with potential benefits. The question is really about identifying who's going to benefit.
This is the key thing. We need to know which particular additional low-risk treatments for what particular cancer. This is the frustration.
That will be helpful. That database, I think, will emerge with time more and more.
I mean, I think the anecdotal experience from practitioners such as yourself is absolutely vital.
It's finding directions.
This can be collated into cohorts. The idea that we need to do an expensive randomised double-blind controlled trial for all our interventions is playing right up to the big pharma's backyard.
I think without being conspiratorial, let's say, I think there are certain economic motivations for things and laziness, right? There's a certain laziness of thinking, and it happens with all of us. And inertia, right? You've got to change something you're doing. It's like, what's going to make me change my practice, right? It's like, I'm so busy, I've got so many things to read, and now you're going to tell me that there's this other thing that I can do, and you haven't got any real proof for it. You can see how a mindset develops which is not conducive to what true science should be. Now, what is true science? From my point of view, I came into medicine very haphazardly. I came in literally, I didn't even know that I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a doctor. I had no inkling to be a doctor in my life. And a friend of mine when I was 16 said to me, why don't you come to, I said, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. And he said, come to medical school, as though it was like going for a walk in the park. And I said to him, what if I don't like it? And he said, well, you can leave. I said, well, what do I do then? And he said, well, pretty much anything. It's a very good first degree to have. And I was, totally, I just believed in enjoying whatever I did, no matter what I do. I said, I want to enjoy whatever I do. And I actually loved medical school, but even when I finished medical school, I was like, I'm not going to be a doctor. I've just done this now. I don't know what else I'm going to do. And I kept trying to leave for years. And the reason I'm telling you this is simply to say that, even going through medical school and everything, you learn all these things and they become your norm, and you think, well, this is the way things are done, and this is it. But true science is something that we all have in us, which is a basic human curiosity. To experiment. Now, I experiment on myself, I experiment on my patients all the time, and I don't call it an experiment, but I tell them very clearly that you know, we're trying this as opposed to this, and this is the benefits and risks, but we're trying this in addition to this.
Because you've got a pretty good idea it's going to be efficacious. It's
Maybe, but we don't.
not a random experiment. It's
No, it's not a random experiment. Obviously, it comes with responsibility and explanation and collaborative approach.
Concordance, you come to agreements with your patients.
For sure, and follow-up, which is hugely important, right? And we're not talking about treating a heart attack with eating oranges. We're talking about, you know, we're talking about things that are reasonable, things that are preventative. They're less sexy, right? They're not the same as, you know, I used to work in emergency for years, and surgery, did all sorts of very, very exciting things. But the actual numbers of patients that you can, whose lives you can improve through prevention and ongoing education, I guess, is vastly more than the few that end up on the operating table by comparison. But the only thing I wanted to mention that was exactly this to develop a passion for experimenting in the positive sense, and how I think that's where science, that's where medicine needs to go back to. It's much more, yes, there's a lot of anecdotes, but there's so much more that can be learned. Because you're learning about yourself, right? You do something and you see the results, as opposed to, well, here's a randomized control study and we're treating X amount of patients and we know that 30% of them do well. Well, great, that's fine for the 30%. We don't know who those 30% are going to be. What about everybody else?
So I have a daily threat brief that
Absolutely, and if I came to you with a condition that was difficult to treat or didn't have a standard treatment, and you said, look, John, my intuition tells me this is going to help you to some degree, then that's worth a lot, because as we go through life and we see lots and lots of patients and teach lots and lots of students, you do develop a certain intuition really for disease, and also, it's more, what I'm saying is much more than guesswork.
Sure, but the guesswork also involves the patient themselves, right? Yes. The person. Okay, so there's the disease and then there's the person. And that's the part which needs to be matched. You can't just say, you know, I get patients all the time who, you know, what can I do for this? Okay, you can do this, but many of them won't do it. And then the other type of person or another specific person will do it. And they'll be engaged and they'll be involved and they want to, and they're, you know, and it's about working with people, sparking their curiosity, sparking their motivation to actually benefit from something.
Yeah. It's basic evidence-based medicine, isn't it? It has to be acceptable to the patient. That's part of it, you know, that's part of the original David Sackett sort of thinking with evidence-based medicine. So I just think we're so desperate now for alternatives to expensive randomised controlled trials. The example I like to use is Richard Doll and Austin Bradford Smith managed to work out that smoking causes lung cancer. And that's without a trial, you know, that was just taking, all they did actually, well, as you all know, but the main thing they did there was survey British doctors. And the ones that smoked got lung cancer much more frequently than the ones that didn't. And then the follow-up study, the ones that smoked got much more coronary artery disease. And, you know, that was just basically two guys thinking about it, being clever, working with results from questionnaires and putting together new ways of analysing evidence.
I think turmeric is one.
Criteria, for example.
And I think that this was at a time when doctors were advertising cigarettes as a healthy habit.
Well, of course, it helps to bring up the phlegm, doesn't it? You know,
absolutely. Wait, there was a rationale there. It was a rationale.
Well, you can actually see it when you have your first cigarette in the morning. It brings the phlegm up.
So yeah, we're just reading. Let's see. You can directly flush or detox tar out of your lungs, and these are good things to do whether you're a smoker or not, because we get that buildup really just in the air we breathe, right? Pesticides, plastics, dust, smoke, smog. Right. Yeah, so a lot of different things. Yeah, from car exhaust, so many different things can build up tar on the lungs aside from smoking. So these things are good to do whether you're a smoker or not. The most effective method to cleanse or detox or flush tar from the lungs is to completely quit smoking. So that's one way. But you have to still breathe, right?
I've spoken with lots of Venezuelans, and inside and outside of the country. I have many of them as friends, and they all play this. Thanks. How likely are landslides and other effects of those tremors?
Yeah, so I mean, smoking cigarettes is a huge, yeah, I don't recommend that at all.
In that fault. So it is likely that there will be landslides and collapse.
If you do smoke, there are some that don't have all of the other chemicals in it. I think American Spirit is one. The only ingredients are water and tobacco, I think. Something like that. Yeah, you can look into it. So ways to flush out the tar that can build up on your lungs from a number of different things. Stay hydrated. Speaking of that, I gotta go refill my water. Drink plenty of water. This thins the mucus in your airways, making it easier to cough up and expel trapped tar. So staying hydrated. Drink plenty of water. Why? Because it thins the mucus in your airways, making it easier to cough up or expel trapped tar. So what are other ways you can thin the mucus aside from drinking more water? So let's expound on that a little bit.
Just like environmentalists think that we destroy the planet by not recycling our pop cans or something like that, or our straws, you just have a much bigger view of how powerful human beings are and how big we are in relation to the planet. When you go up in an airplane, you fly over vast swaths of the planet, and you realize just how much open land there is, how many millions and millions of square miles of just plain forest and mountains there are all across the globe. You realize that human beings are much smaller than we think we are. And so, we're not causing earthquakes. Now, there have been earthquakes that were caused in the United States because of fracking, but there's not a lot of fracking going on. And also, it bears pointing out that in addition to the earthquakes that happened in Venezuela, there was an earthquake in California yesterday as well, and I think one other earthquake that may have been all related. All of these were related. Look, man, the tectonic plates shift. That's how it works. Next is an open field outside the safe space for an earthquake. Yes. In the past,
less dairy products does help to thin the mucus, yes. There are kind of conflicting opinions with that.
Does anyone else notice that all the things Trump has bragged about existing going wrong in one way or the other? That's not really on topic for today, but
yeah, I mean, people get dairy-induced congestions. Yeah, dairy-induced congestion is actually a thing. Why don't they teach people about this? It's so scary to us. No, ma, hold up. Use humidifier. Adding moisture to the air. I do that sometimes, breathe in the steam. Yeah, it's nice. I like those cool mist, those little handheld ones. Those are great. Adding moisture to the air helps to loosen thin, dry mucus. Gargle salt water. This soothes the throat and helps clear up post-nasal drip. Mucus thinning foods. U.S. health experts suggest incorporating anti-inflammatory and hydrating items like ginger, turmeric, and foods rich in vitamin C.
Not look at this as, oh, it's the government's job to do something about this. No, we should look at it like it's my job to do something about this. And if I get over there, you'll be able to help through the hot zone, and we'll go find people that are specifically in.
You're welcome. Oh, wow, it's already still going there at 3.5 hours. Hello. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was just checking. I wasn't sure if that was still going or not. Yes, I'm doing good. Thank you. Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, we're reading about ways to thin the mucus and cleanse tar from the lungs. Yeah, we can get tar buildup on our lungs. Good things to learn about, because even if you're a non-smoker, and with how much smoking gets promoted, it's probably good to learn about those things. Right, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, that's going to be the cost they pay for smoking. So we won't teach them about ways to clear tar off the lungs. And because it's really good for you, even if you're a non-smoker, because we get that tar buildup. Yeah, not just from that, right? And I listen to everybody. I know so many for years have been speaking out about these kind of things. Meat and dairy industry, they always say that, like, why don't they educate about it? And so many experts and people always say, oh, meat and dairy industry. I know, and you see them losing their minds, and you're just like, I hope I don't wind up like that.
That's a very good question, Jenny. And I have said before that it's almost a fail safe, but it's getting better. Like I said, there's on
Yeah, exactly.
Is helping.
Thank you.
They're still being led by
Yes, you're welcome.
not move people. There is a ton of corruption that's endemic at this point, and that all goes back to the previous administration. For sure.
Yeah, we're gonna make some tofu with the orange panda sauce. It's really good.
Was it Japan quite bad too? Yeah, it was very bad.
Yeah, we got the orange sauce from Panda Express at Walmart.
The higher it goes on the Richter scale, it's not incrementally more powerful, it's exponentially more powerful. So when you get above 7, here's where you read that. You don't want to get a 7.0 or higher.
Yeah, it's really good.
All
right. Yeah, I sure hope so. I really hope so.
That's awesome. In the UK, so you're a taxi driver and now the manager of your role.
With that?
Well, if you want to be a hot token, I will say.
Yeah, of course. Of course, all we can do is hope and pray that the facts and issues get addressed here. I can't even explain to you over the years the pain and trauma that a lot of us have felt knowing what we know. I can only imagine, yeah, the victims too, and just knowing what they go through and many getting killed.
Here in Panama, and try to make a living that way. So that's, again, thanks to the donations that we get through our supporters.
Thank you.
All right, one last thing, folks. If you go to
Okay. Thank you so much for your service. You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Sorry, I was just talking. A few people stepped in to... Just wanted to say hi. All right. None of your never mind. You don't need to know. You don't... It's not really important. U.S. health experts suggest incorporating anti-inflammatory and hydrating things such as ginger, turmeric, and foods rich in vitamin C. So you were right, yeah, turmeric, it helps to thin the mucus and clear up some of that tar off the lungs, yes. Limit mucus thickening foods. So the mucus thickening foods would be high-fat dairy, refined sugars, and fried foods that can sometimes make the mucus feel thicker. All right, so thinning the mucus is definitely one thing you can do. Staying hydrated is one of the best things you can do to do that. Cardiovascular exercise, brisk walking or swimming, promotes deeper breathing and helps your airways stay open, encouraging your lungs to clear themselves. Hence why we love doing our breathing exercises. It almost just becomes part of your kind of natural. Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Doing the focused breath is good to do once in a while, yes. Yeah, a lot of us, we do it daily. Inhaling warm, humidified air can provide temporary relief by opening up airways and loosening congestion. Practice deep breathing. Eat anti-inflammatory foods. Consume a diet rich in antioxidants such as berries, dark leafy greens, ginger, and turmeric to help reduce inflammation in your body. Improve air quality. Use high-quality air filters to reduce your exposure to secondhand smoke, dust, and indoor chemicals. Yeah, I remember actually back 2005 and 6, 7, people saying that with so many concerns with the Western medicine and the overload of drugs and vaccines on these children who are now adults, yeah. Yeah, just to even mention probiotics. It was difficult. I remember some people saying, my gosh, these simple diet changes and whatever else is way better than those prescription drugs that were making me sicker. Oh my God, it's like it's so much, right? It's so many people were saying this, right? And they were trying to snuff that out, and they did a good job, it appears. It's kind of scary when you see it. When it comes to the poor people, maybe up in your classes, yeah, I mean, that's standard, right? You wouldn't even think about seeing a Western medicine doctor. You all do. Yeah, naturopath, holistic, duh. Right. That's the point. Anyways, I know, frig the poor people, right? They can't afford it. And you profit from pushing the drugs on them, so bravo. Right. Yeah, you couldn't even mention probiotics. They'd get upset. And people would say, well, instead of paying how much money a month? When you look at how much money gets paid out per month by the insurance companies, when you start looking, where does this money coming from to pay the pharmacies, the labs, the people holding stock, the doctors, what is it? I mean, they give out cruises all the time. Stipends and bonuses. Yeah, maybe not cruises anymore. They like to switch that up, just like the other things, tactics and stuff. Once things start to get talked about or noticed, they move on to something else and then promote the cruises and stuff to the idiot middle class people that want to keep up with the Joneses. Yeah, I know. It's like Clockwork Orange, man. Over and over again. Oh, man. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue. It's a rainbow of clockwork. Look at that. Don't say rainbow. Jesus. Look at what you started. You want to dress up like a ballerina? Hand out some candy. Blue 42. Blue 42. That's good. Good stuff, huh? Well, yeah, so people were like, instead of paying all that money for this drug I don't want to take, this is way better. Can I just get like $100 voucher? That would cover a lot of this stuff. Get some turmeric, garlic, some broccoli, whatever, $100 that I could put towards. Or even $300 would be way less, a fraction of the cost, right? Is it the cost or who's gonna get lost? Right, because when you go, why don't they just do that? Well, they don't profit from a lot of that stuff. It's not FDA approved, you get sued, you know? Okay. You guys are totally fucked. You understand that, right? This is going to be one of the darkest, most fucked up bullshit. In the future, they're going to read about this and they're going to be like, what a bunch of evil, nasty, greedy motherfucking pieces of shit. They didn't even fucking care about their own kids. God damn it. I know, you see it. When you start seeing it in the individual situations and you just kind of spread that out, and you don't shoot them in the face so people can actually understand what the fuck is going on. What did I say? Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy New Year. Merry Valentine's Day. Saint Thanksgiving. And it's happy Halloween. Not scary Halloween, it's happy. Anyways, much love, health, and peace, everybody. We're going to make some rice and tofu. It's 2:34. And the time on the clock for my video was 3:45 when I said that. I'm just saying. Yeah, we might do some reading in a little bit. We kind of just did some reading, right? We were reading that off a screen. There was some ad lib. There was a little bit of ad lib in there, yes. Thanks for noticing. Thanks for noticing. Shows you're paying attention. All right, I'm going to go make a coffee while our rice cooks in our Ninja pressure cooker. Oh, yes, of course. Independence Day. Happy Independence Day to you. You know, it's easier to say Happy 4th, right? Independence. It's 4 syllables. 4th is a 1. I just like to save time, you know? Time is money. All right, much love. Mwah.